Sorry, I've got the goofy shit about me today.
Bits for the amazingly accurate coffee cup.
Thank you, thank you. It is most certainly needed. How goes it, Bacon? Coming in, coming in! You on the high seas? You getting into mischief? Caffeine from the other room. I've fully come to accept, friends, that we're basically just pirate radio today, and that's alright. Look, it makes me really fucking happy to wake up and see the entirety of the longship jumping. I almost said yo-hoing, but that feels like, feels a little wrong. Yeah, do it. Chase after that One Piece. Become that pirate legend. I'm over here getting caffeinated. And got a few cool questions for Nathan. So this is going to be a really good morning. Should start hyping up though. So yeah, coming in, friends, coming in. And Bacon, thank you for the 200. How goes it? How goes it?
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
I be negative, baby.
There's three ways to take that. Firstly, it's the immediate piracy style of Yar, I be negative, baby. Or I be negative, baby. A haunting superhero of strange power. Sorry, Lizzie. Thank you for 46 months, and I'm real happy to hear that your tests come back negative. You've been through the ringer. What will you do with your newfound freedom? Majestic Sammy, Steppagen, Kimball, Megaboss. What, oh friends? We have a cool guest coming on in about 40 minutes. I have an exceedingly weird game to show you. Let no one say that... Let no one say I don't keep things interesting. Oh, Mr. Squarepeg, good morning. What's oh, friend? Hello. Got a pint of coffee. Bright Karma, hello, hello. Aww. Oh, and Gip Ned. What's ho, friend? Hello, hello. Lizzie got to spend some time with the nephew's dag this morning. Lovely. Ezekiel, good morning. What's ho, friend? How did Part-Time get a new icon? Well, Ezekiel, have you tried the surprising alternative to sleep? A fuckload of coffee. It's a new craze sweeping the nation. Coffee. I understand you've probably not heard of this. Where is my humor at this morning? Oh, good morning, friends. How are you doing? Bright Karma is going to be dog-sitting a puppy named Randy Savage. This is the thing. You've got to be prepared to scream your dog's name in a dog park full of people. And Randy Savage. That's a long-winded one. Or just what? Randy for short? Like, there's so much to unpack. Megaboss found a family-based roguelike. Is that the, was it the Dungeons of Mortar? Dungeons of Mora? Catastros, good morning. What ho, friends? Rikami, hello, hello. Acquired new puppy on Sunday. She is a 7.5-week-old corgi. My little heart. I mean, Lizzie, please do. Friends, there is never a time where we do not want to see dog pictures in general. That's why we don't have a pet channel, because every channel is pet channel. Just like how every bed is dog bed. Ezekiel's going live on national telly in the morning with their prototype of a brain stroke project. Damn, that's intense. I mean, all the more coffee to you, and I hope it goes well. My dad got hit by a stroke when I was my teens, so I'm acutely aware of the effect of such a thing. So no, good on you, friend. Good on you. Ah, man. You said it was a good thumbnail, Kaimbu. I was hoping it was me just, like, eyeballing my coffee. Nah, it's just... I'm just there. But, Rikami, I am looking at pictures of your corgi puppy. And there's an adorable pup, and I want to be best friends with them. Oh. Oh, well, Majestic Sammy... Go you. I'm sorry there isn't much I can offer in terms of help with that. I haven't had time to do any editing or any video stuff beyond the occasional TikTok. But good on you, good on you. And lovely to see you. Oh, was I? Man, I guess it's showing different thumbnails to... Shenanigans. Shenanigans! Ah! Rikami saying that she is, as I would put it, an absolute terror. With being unable to go to GameWorks yesterday, we just went down to the dog bar instead, and Amos found another puppy his age, his energy, and oh boy, he's tucking out little cutie today. he's so sleepy, and he wanted to stay up with the boys last night. So he was, even though he was like nodding off, he's like, no, I'm still awake. I'm hanging out. Oh, this is so cool. Oh. Bless his littles. Ah, yes, that's it. Children of Mortar. See, Children of Mortar is an interesting one, Mega Boss, because while it is technically a roguelike, it's not told from the perspective of a single character. It's told from the perspective of the whole family. Like, narrated as you go through so much. Like, it actively encourages you to rotate family members. And I find that fascinating. So it's not so much about pick a character you love and just stick with that. It's going through as all of them. And I find that fascinating. Rikami, be lucky it was naught but the cable. But yeah, how are you doing, you lovely Mother Hubbards? In terms of video game news, the new Sea of Thieves update dropped, which is why there is a buttload of people playing piratey video games in the Longship. Koch Media rebranded to Palion. It's probably got some very strange pronunciation. It looks like the evil corporation from a sci-fi video game that ends up like siphoning energy from hell. But it is what it is. Aperios, what ho friend? Koch Media have kind of been a sleeping giant. It feels a little bit unfair. Excuse me, coffee burps. It feels a little bit unfair as a descriptor, but they're one of those companies that's incredibly influential in the whole industry. But if you don't know them, you would miss they were there. Back for Blood's getting more stuff. Oh, and Unrailed is free on Epic, which is a lovely, lovely game. Exceedingly fun to play against friends. I know you meant to say with friends, but God, Unrail's just got this wonderful penchant for chaos. Oh, and Back for Blood's adding its second DLC with a bloke named Dan. He's got a mustache. No, I think after the big hit of news stuff yesterday, things seem to be a little calmer. The Dead by Daylight game's going down a treat. Most played game on the Steam Deck is Multiversus. I don't know, people are very, very grumpy at Square Enix for their for some of the things they've announced for the the re-release of Tactics Ogre. Yeah, Dan, what a horrible name for a character. You're listening. So many Dans. So many Dans. Oh. Sorry about that, friends. Just wrangling. Oh, which one, Varbles? Sorry. That was me careening around. Why don't these sites have feckin' dark mode? Games Industry Biz just changed their site, and every time I open it up, it's like glaring at the fucking sun. For Tactics Ogre, it seems to be how this particular port is being handled. I can kind of understand. Sorry, bear with me just a second, friends. Okay, so for today, I have an exceptionally cool. Oh wow! For today, apparently, I've forgotten how to feckin'. I've forgotten how to speak. I am having a meltdown. Hello. Can I get another do-over on that one, please? Apparently, I need more coffee and about 3 runs at that. Okay. So, we have a very cool guest on today. You all met him like 1,000 years ago. I think it was either mid or pre-plague. God, you know what? I think it might have been pre-plague. So Nathan Grayson is going to be joining us. Nathan was a journo at Kotaku, is now over at the Washington Post, and looks at kind of the intersection between streaming and video games, and that's his sphere. It's kind of one of the 2 people in the games media sphere that really kind of understands streaming and how it affects everything else. So he's going to be joining us in about half an hour, and we're going to be going from there. After Nathan's interview, I have a gloriously weird game for you. Gloriously weird. Because I figure, like, you all are going to be on the high seas today, so we don't want anything super intense. We don't want anything like, you know, flashing lights and air horns. So, having spoken about it a million times, we will be playing Damien Crawford's Golf Experience, the finest text-based golf adventure game. Like, this thing has 6 reviews on Steam. No one else has played this. Fiona and I, you know what, I'll just link you the game. The gentleman in the trailer is our friend Hunter, and he is exceedingly funny. So that's what I want to do today, friends. We've been meaning to get back to some interviews and talking to some cool people. And for those of you who have only really joined us over the last couple of months, like, the reason why I do these kind of industry interviews is I realized a few years back that I have a lot of privilege. And one of those is from doing events, from working PAX and E3 and Gamescom and GDC and all of these things. I've come to know a lot of really, really cool people who are exceedingly knowledgeable in their fields. And it's allowed me to understand a lot more of this industry from different perspectives than other people. Not the paid fake actor in the trailer. Maybe I should tell Hunter. I can't believe they paid someone to pretend to be Hunter. Sorry. I've been lucky enough to have conversations with people like Nathan or feckin' Chet or feckin' like Damien and people like that. All these huge powerhouses of the industry. And considering that the Longship as a whole is a culmination of people who make games, want to make games, or really love video games as a whole, like, I want to be able to share these kinds of conversations with yourself. So yeah, so Nathan's going to be joining us in about half an hour. Like, I've written down a few cool questions, but if you've got anything you want to ask, let me know. I'll probably be doing alert pausing during... I'll probably be pausing alerts during the banter. So what you do with that knowledge is up to you. I feel like I might need like an alert pause thing on screen. So yeah, so that's the plan for today. We may see a few more of these interviews happening throughout like the coming months. It's something we used to do a lot of before the plague kind of kicked everybody's ass. Mainly because most of my industry friendos started streaming of their own volition, which is fucking cool. Possibly have someone lined up for the 18th. And if that comes to fruition, no spoilers, if that comes to fruition, touch wood, that is going to be fucking awesome. Or maybe just, Mega Boss, maybe we should just put up the Final Fantasy silenced icon from 14. For all the kiddies. And Moose, how are you doing, friend? Cheers for the 100. And Stammering Gamer, what ho, friend? I'm actually on time. I've been late. Our guest's not joining us for another 20 minutes or so. Honest Rogue, you did not miss the interview. Perios has a Chrome extension that makes all site dark mode. I might get that. I've been very paranoid about Chrome extensions. I installed one to remove bullshit from my Twitter feed, and then my Twitter got hacked. Well, okay, no, and then someone tried to brute force my Twitter account, and I lost it for like 3 weeks. Yeah, you know what, Mega Boss? You're right. Maybe that's not a good idea. Kyle uses Dark Reader at work. Yeah, you know what? That seems like a good. It's just gi.biz. Look, it's just so bright. Look, you can see what I'm changing. Feckin' tabs. Shenanigans. Nasari, what ho, friend? Hello, hello. Anyway, friends, so yeah, that is the that's the long and short of it. How's it going with your good selves? Oh, sorry. Stammering was saying they've been seeing a lot of Gundam-themed projects. Our devices are listening to us, and if your phone's heard me nattering on about Gundams, I want more Gundams. Unfortunately, there may be potential bleed through. I did see the router you posted, but that's actually been around for a while. The one I keep looking at is the PC builds. Although all the gorgeous Gundam graphics cards got snapped up by crypto miners a while back, which broke my little heart. Someone was posting a video of their crypto mine farm and what have you, and there, smack in the middle of one of the blocks, was the Gundam graphics card with its gorgeous color scheme. Because it was one of the last series of cards that didn't have the mining limiters put on it. It's probably something along the lines of, now that crypto is like bottoming out, the parts are suddenly available again. Some of the cases are gorgeous as well. I have not asked... Okay, I saw Lizzie's and I was like, no, I've asked for more Gundam banter. It's also been interesting... See, this is the thing. I don't have a huge amount of visibility on a lot of hobbies. I understand video games, I understand the industry, but like, I don't actually know how the model kit industry works and operates, so I can only guess. I think it's pretty safe to say that during lockdown, you know, especially due to the complete obliteration of all stock and the prices going through the roof, that a lot of people got into model kit building to keep sane during lockdown. Now the question is going to be, does that continue? Like, did
Reactor online, sensors online, weapons online, all systems nominal.
This is your monthly reminder. Beware of a madman who rambles about Gundams, indie games. He's usually a cult leader. And yes, it is a cult. Why do I do this, you ask? Because I can.
I like how we've gotten to the point, Dom, where you've anticipated everything I'm gonna say in response, and I've just folded it in. Absolute terror. Dom, thank you for 46 months. When are you heading to Twitch London? Rilu mentioned that you were going as a squad, and I'm jelly. I'm very jelly. It's Saturday, okay. It's not a cult. Dom, you've set him off. Can't believe you've done this. But no, Dom, on top of everything, thank you for the full slew of 46 months. That is as much as one can. Perios, you're a terror. You're an absolute terror. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of the hobbies that spiked during lockdown, how many of them persist. Because the thing is, like, it was Jaralan that sent through the OG Gundam Barbatus kit that really got me into it. And since then, you all have been wonderful terrors. Oh, sorry, I was asking, starting out on an airbrush for beginners. The little portable USB charger ones aren't bad if you're only doing small minis or small Gundams. Gradient stuff is incredibly hard. Terrors, us? Pourquoi? Feckin' J-Post, thank you for the 100 bits. Yes, you're all absolute terrors, and you know it. But J-Post, the Yaldum is yours. What will you do with this? Yeah, so sorry, the biggest pain in the ass when airbrushing is cleaning it. That takes a lot. You'll spend more time cleaning your airbrush after using it than you will using it. So doing gradient stuff can be very tricky. That's why a lot of kits a lot of people who do custom paint jobs unless they're going right into the details, we'll only really do like 1 or 2 bits. But I will say, it's fucking cool. And the little ventilation chamber I've got here was a lovely gift from some friends, but it is just one of the chambers you can get on Amazon. So this. Yeah, Kaiba got the airbrush and the airbrush paints. The rabbit hole is very much happening. Yeah, I think, Kaiba, I think I've decided I'm going to try and do, when Paycheck comes in, I'm going to try and do Evil Dead Gundam. I'm going to do my Bruce Campbell neck. Oh. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Actually, that reminds me, I need to lock in a date and talk to our spooky judge. But yeah, so sorry, we can absolutely help out with that. I mean, the reason I haven't done more airbrushing stuff has just been hours in a day, you know? So many Gundams. Oh, we got the pub quiz tonight, don't we? Sorry, I was thinking like, oh, I could sit down, I could paint some Gundams today after work. Oh, and just friends, just to put into your wheelhouse that from tomorrow we will need to name our galleon in Sea of Thieves. So start thinking, because excuse me. Because what I was thinking was, we get different size ships for different. I guess Ems does sometimes have a galleon. It's fine. We've got enough cash to cover it all. Anyway, ship names. Keep thinking them up, because whatever we get, we're stuck with, at least for a good long while. Excuse me. Actually, and Kimball, I'd be really curious about that one, because loads of people hit me up after the Adam Savage video being like, oh shit, did you see he built one of the big Gundams? And I was surprised how much reach he has still in media. But this is one of those things where I don't want to talk with any kind of authority, because, you know, I follow Raul Cooley and a bunch of other, like, big nerds in the space who all got into Gundams and Warhammer stuff and things all at about the same time. So my perception of how many people are actually getting involved in these kind of hobbies has drastically changed. Terror's a lot of you. Terror's a lot of you. Okay. So we got about 10-15 minutes before our guest joins us. Actually, let's see if I... It's that thing of like, I forgot, I don't remember what this person... Why do you not put up with me? I am clearly wavy-davy all over the place today. Actually, Kimball, that's a very good point. If we name the ship Two Bells, would people two bells... No, that's it. Stream's cancelled. Internet's cancelled. Talking is cancelled. I cannot speak today. I am unraveling. I am in no state to talk to another human being. Oh, bleed Nora. No, it's one of the other things I do like about
How do giant squids make omelets? They start by cracking some eggs.
By cracking some eggs. Indeed they do. Favor 6, thank you for the bits. Even though I'm clearly a discombobulated wobbly hand puppet right now. But thank you. Oh. Starting off on a high note today, I hear. Yup! I'm on point! I'm a professional. No, it's one of the things I like about how we kind of operate in our little corner of the internet, you know? It's more about the people we talk to and how we hang out rather than the presentation being immaculate. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Slugging down coffee. Kimball looked up puppet making kits today. Oh lord. Yeah. The puppet episode is happening. Please forgive me for the cough. The thing is, there's an actual like puppet slam, or was a puppet slam scene in Seattle, and I worry, you know, like I'm in deep with the Gundams. That's fine. I build them my own time. I enjoy that. Like this is the last one I made, a mech from Sakura Wars. If I had more time, I'd probably paint like the internal cockpit and stuff. But it's got like a nice shiny metallic armor. It's right good. But the thing with these is it's a break from the day to day. Like we put together a little robot. It goes on the it goes on the shelf, and that's cool. You know, Gundam in every room. But if I get into puppets, there are places you go and drink and have like puppet hangouts and like improv puppets and shit, and I'm not ready. That's a sphere I'm not ready for. Because where does it end? Friends, where does it end? The once and future Muppet King. And Danny, how are you doing, friend? Watto and welcome. To those of you who have just joined us, we have a very cool guest coming on, and we have an exceedingly weird game to play after. It is going to be a wonderful day. But at the moment, we're talking about puppets, and I'm starting to become afraid. How are you? No, we've got Nathan Grayson joining us in just a second, who is an ex-Kotaku, now, I just making sure I'm saying the right thing, Washington Post journalist, who primarily focuses on live streaming, the culture around it, and how it intersects with other parts of both games, but also, you know, real life. As I was saying earlier, like Nathan's like one of two people, at least that I'm aware of in like the media space, that really understands streaming and Twitch as a platform and stuff like that. So if you'll want to start cooking up some good questions, we'll have Nathan with us in about 5 or 10 minutes. So if you need more coffee, if you need more beverages, now is also the time for that. I'm worryingly low on mine. It's fine. I'll just get Nathan on the show. I'll be like, Nate, just talk to everybody. I'm gonna go get some more coffee. We cool? Yeah. Thank you for coming on and doing my job for me. Now you just talk to the longship, mate. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Why do you lot put up with me? Oh. Oh, and sorry, for those of you wondering why in the bloody hell we're talking about puppets, we were having a puppet conversation, what was it, yesterday? Because I have two things I've never been able to do in the games industry. One is a musical asset, the other is a puppet asset. Rob wouldn't let me do a puppet episode of Rally Point because Rob's a great big curmudgeon. God, there's so many things we did in Rally Point that will never see the light of day. There's a bit where there was a bit where Becky got put in a box and thrown off a bridge. And I think the Game of Thrones bit did get used in the end. Back when Game of Thrones was good, Craig basically crushed my head like a watermelon. And, God, that was one of the funniest assets we did. Sorry, by asset, I mean like a video for a thing. It was meant to promote the Total War Mowgli game when they added multiplayer. And so the idea was, it was Craig getting increasingly frustrated as I'm winning at a, like, what was it? Total War Battles Kingdoms or something. And then he ambushes me in the kitchen, knocks me over, and basically just breaks my face. What we did is we got a watermelon and stuck a picture of my face to it. Not even particularly well. It's a proper old school horror movie cut where it's like Craig's just about to crush my face. And then I don't know what happened. I guess it's just the stress of, you know, working in AAA, you know, the amount of responsibilities that Craig had at the time or just personal stuff. But something cracked inside him that day and he just fucking wails on this watermelon. There is gore everywhere. Now, we've put down some sheets. We let the cleaning ladies know that one, this is happening, and two, we'll absolutely clear up after ourselves. They were fine with it. They even gave us the plastic sheets for it. Nice clear ones. But yo, you ever seen a grown-ass person just fist wailing on a watermelon on a kitchen floor? I have this mental image that will stay with me for the rest of my life as Fred. Hey Fred, Watto and welcome. As Craig's fist is coming back up from wailing into the center of this watermelon, all the gore and chunks of it just get flicked upwards with the sheer force that he's throwing down. A little bit of fear that day. Yes, I would surmise Craig had some repressed rage that came out in that video, and I think it got released in the end. But apparently crushing your co-worker's face and then beating them to a pulp is not an appropriate way to advertise a video game. Thanks, Rob. Actually, I don't remember if that asset went out or not, so I can't throw shade. Well, I mean, Fred, there's the question. Is it the once and future king Muppet or the once and future Muppet king? It's a very important distinction. Very important distinction. All right. So yeah, so friends, you got about 4 or 5 minutes before we get Nathan on the line. So if any of you want to go grab a bevy, if any of you want to go get yourself a cup of tea, now is the time. chat about today? Tippity tappity, let's make stuff happening. But yeah, so friend, how are you doing, friend? What ho and welcome. Wolfcrad! What ho, friends! Hello, hello! I know it's shocking that I came close to starting on time today. I cannot spell fucking love on money today. Okie dokie Lokies. Down under dwarf. On time? What's that? Fred, this is just cold brew. I have had some water. Should probably stand to have some more. Oh. Okie dokie Lokies. I'm good for the moment, but thank you. Actually, I think I killed all the cold brews. Yeah. Alright. Let's get this party started. Oh, hey, Sadlin. What's up? Watto and welcome. Cool guest inbound. Okay. Should it be okay? Yeah, this should be fine. This should be fine, right? God, my life and my streaming setup is a disaster. Thank you all for bearing with me today, friends. I'm just... Why does everybody want to talk to me today? Why am I popular now? This is foreboding. Alright, let's get Nathan on the line, and let's go from there. Okay. Start a video call. Can you hear me?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, although I'm having some technical problems on this side. You may not be able to see me, except on stream.
Here, one moment. Let me see if I can...
You wouldn't think I do this for a living.
Ah, well, it's probably fine. Yeah, also, I mean, I figure what cameras have trouble outputting to like multiple different feeds, so probably if you're already outputting to your stream and it's not going to work on Discord, I don't know.
You are correct. I was hoping I could get around this by doing some clever nonsense today, but it is not letting me.
Yeah, so it goes sometimes. Ooh, there we go.
But I believe you are coming through nice and clear. Let's get your lovely visage up for these lovely Mother Hubbards.
Yeah, let's see. Just realized I don't have chat open, but I want to have chat open. But in a terrible twist of fate, my I use a USB splitter on my computer, and it broke recently. So I currently use a
No.
setup where if I ever have my microphone plugged in, I have my keyboard unplugged. And so I'm now realizing it may be impossible to navigate to your channel.
Well, I'll do my darndest to read out questions from these lovely Mother Hubbards.
Alrighty.
And
Let's see.
and thank you all for bearing with us while I play whack-a-mole with varying setups.
Mm-hmm.
Consummate professional will.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. How are you doing today? How's it going?
You know what? I got a pint of coffee in me. I'm doing good. I actually came preloaded with questions and everything today, so despite
Oh wow.
the technical feckery, I'm feeling rather prepared.
Right, prepared on every other level.
Yes.
Just not that one. Yeah. Well, that's good.
I mean, before we get started formally, I'm sure you know the whole diddlio. If there's anything that you can't talk about or don't want to go into, please feel free to be like, Will, no.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, you can ask me about whatever. Also, I mean, maybe if you've yet to already do them, we can do like introductions and stuff too. That needs to be done.
We'll do them proper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So let's do this like we mean it, friends. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you all to Nathan Grayson. Hey, Nathan! Yay!
Woo! Yeah, that's me.
If I didn't do a good job intros proper, so Nathan is a journalist over at, I keep getting them this way round, over at the Washington Post.
There we go. You got it.
Previously in Kotaku and a whole slew of other outlets, and I mean, I've been trying to describe your field, your specialty. It's pretty much like streaming and its kind of intersection with everything else. Yeah, pretty much. I cover like, I cover a lot of video game stuff, but I often focus on Twitch and live streaming and content creation. And yeah, I mean, like oftentimes, especially because I'm at the Post, like how it kind of overlaps with, like the world and politics and things like, streamers covering stuff like Ukraine or like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is like, bigger cultural moments that happen to be reflected through Twitch and through like people who stream for a living. I met Nathan at a fucking bar at TwitchCon, wasn't it? It was the wolf-themed karaoke place.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
I've been annoying Nathan in DMs ever since.
Yeah. I mean, I've come on your stream before. It has happened. It happened pre-pandemic, which seems like a whole different lifetime and world ago.
It was pre-pandemic, and I still get people going onto the video that you were on prior and dropping comments. I've even had to put
that's right.
disclaimer.
You told me about this.
It's like Nathan doesn't see these. Why?
Yeah. It's really funny though. People are very salty about that.
Even 1,000 years on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even you would figure that like a pandemic, right, would at least like give people some perspective on what matters. And they're like, no, this still matters. I emerged from the pandemic and I've realized more than ever that this is all I care about.
Yep. So Mr. Squarepeg, you'll absolutely be allowed to ask questions. I'll scribble them down, but we'll probably do like Q&As closer towards the end proper. And if you're wondering what we're talking about, I believe...
Yeah, I'm wondering.
We can flamflumph if we need to for stuffs that's close to edge. When is flamflumph 2 coming out, Will?
What are we talking about?
So Asari was mentioning Maflamfaflamp, which is a made-up AAA IP that we use when we're interviewing people that can't talk about the projects they're on directly, but want to talk about the mechanics of it.
Right.
And so, yeah, the Maflamfaflamp series kind of was born out of that bizarrity. But yeah, so Nathan, it is lovely to have you with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I guess to bring everybody up to speed, like how has the transition been from like games media to traditional media? How's that been treating you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty like it's been relatively easy, I guess, because like WAPO has been pretty good about kind of like spinning up a video games vertical that is still like, I mean, we definitely have one foot in the world of games media, I would say. And I think just like allowing us to sort of like do our thing within the purview of the post. Like I've heard, for example, that like at a place like the New York Times, right? It's like really hard to cover video games, and like the only person really doing it consistently, his name is Kellen. He's also like covering a bunch of other stuff too. He only like gets to spend maybe 30% of his time on games or something like that. And even then, like the Times, like they're very bureaucratic about it. So you've got to get everything like approved. You've got to like run it up the chain. Everyone's going to be like, does that actually really matter though? Like, I mean, I don't know. Video games, are those important? Whereas at the Post, like we have our own little section of the site and of the paper. It's just our vertical's name is Launcher, which is like not good for SEO, but whatever. And then, we just sort of, we report to basically like one. I report to somebody like directly above me, who's like the head of Launcher, and that's just kind of it. Like I say, like I want to work on this, and he's like, cool, go work on that.
Nice.
And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's definitely more like I think games media is kind of very much a grind, where like if you work at a place like Kotaku, for example, or PC Gamer, or wherever else, like, or Polygon, you're expected to like publish X number of posts per day, and you kind of got to like go through and take a lot of things that are already out there and just sort of rewrite them. And like it's it can be a little bit, if not tedious at times, and at least like there's not a lot of time to actually do the things that you want to do. And I think just because the Post is this massive paper and publication where the expectation is that the reporting is original, you do have a lot more time to kind of just like do your own things and reach out to people and talk to people and do journalism. So that's pretty neat.
Cool. I mean, we talked a lot about it the last time you were on, so I don't think we need to cover it as much as, but games journalism is a very strange profession, in that there's a hunger for the investigative stuff, but what actually puts food on the table, what gets clicks through, are the faster, quicker turnaround elements. Yes, and I did actually tweet. Check me out. I'm on form today.
Nice. Good job. I will retweet that in a second. I'm doing like 4 different tasks at once because I realized how to finally get myself a link to your stream, which I'm going to immediately mute.
No one needs.
And then now I can see chat. Yes. Okay, I did that. And then on top of that, I'm also going to tweet.
Yay!
And I did all of that while fairly coherently answering your question. So I think that is the most impressive thing that I will do today.
You've got the streamer's gift. You've got the power.
Yeah, I have the ability to multitask,
Honestly,
albeit
if it wasn't
very frantically.
If it wasn't for GI Biz changing their entire site layout to bright as the sun, no one would know the amount of time I'm flitting between like 8 different tabs while holding a conversation. But no, as I said, it was something we talked about a lot, and it's definitely been interesting to see in the last few weeks with, Vox Media downsizing their teams and a few other publications just being gone. How much of those roles were, quick, rapid fire. Okay, here's an article that somebody else wrote. Crib it, condense it, link through to it, go.
Right.
And it seems to be a lot of the individuals that have been trimmed of late have been the people who are working on more of the long form stuff.
Yeah. Well, it also depends on like where you're looking, because I think that like a lot of places have definitely hired for people who can kind of, do quicker turnaround things that sort of just like keep sites moving. But also like, for example, I mean, I know that IGN hired a lot of like more investigative people, kind of like started focusing on that. But yeah, I think in general, it's sort of like, even since the last time we talked, the landscape has sort of changed, in part because like we went from kind of this era where everyone generated traffic via like Facebook and stuff like that. To this era where now it's all about like Google search traffic. And so now suddenly all the sites that used to be like, we're just doing like news and reviews and features, they all have like guide sections now. And like some of these sites are like more guide than they are news at this point.
Is that
because that's easy to search?
Is that why we've seen such an uptick in, 10 things I wish I'd known when I started a game?
Bingo.
Here's how to unlock X in X.
Yeah, because like that does really good like that's really good SEO, right? It's like very easy to get to the top of Google doing stuff like that. And then if you're at the top of Google, you know, like odds are, especially if it's like a new game or whatever, everyone's going to be like searching for your thing.
To those who don't know, what's SEO?
Search engine optimization. So yeah, the idea that basically like if you have the right series of keywords, if you know how to play the Google algorithm, then like when somebody searches for like, you know, for example, like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 tips, your post will be the first one that appears. And then just like it's a mathematical probability that people will click on your thing the most. And so then suddenly like your website gains not just like traffic for one day, but like that becomes a source of traffic kind of indefinitely for as long as people are interested in that game. And so then what you do is you get a ton of people writing guides like this, and you have like kind of a permanent bedrock of traffic. So you're no longer like worried about, you know, oh no, this new thing that we just published today, this new story, like, is it going to do enough traffic to keep the lights on? Is it going to like instead you just have kind of like a base that you're always working from. So that's what sites do now.
Okay, that's fascinating. See, again, despite spending as much time as I do in the space, there's whole swaths of the industry and games media that we just don't see. And
right.
It's genuinely fascinating. It's lovely to hear that your transition to proper media has been good. Aside from guides writing, is there anything else trend-wise you're noticing in games media space that's worth cracking into? Because I wasn't going to revisit the topic, but if it has changed that much since we last chatted, like, feck it, let's get into it. Let's do this.
Yeah. I mean, I think to an extent, yeah. I think that while, like, you know, guides have kind of become this source of traffic and of, you know, like websites kind of being able to make money, there have been some positive trends too. I think that, again, like to kind of use the IGN example, a lot of publications, like where they can, have definitely sort of improved their approach to like investigative journalism.
Okay.
I think that we went from an era in which like the only, like within games media, there were only a couple people really doing any of it, to sort of like a lot of younger reporters now like doing investigations into various companies, you know, unearthing misconduct, writing about unionization, things like that. I think that there's definitely been kind of a strong push toward more actual journalism within games journalism, which was not always the case.
Very true.
Yeah, and so I think that's been neat to see. Let's see.
Do you think that's been good for those publications, or do you think that's kind of the meat, whereas it's the rest that's generating traffic? Like, is there as much a hunger to read about this stuff as there is to see it produced?
I think yes, there's a pretty big hunger to read about it when it like actually reveals something people didn't know, right? Like there's sort of tiers to this, but basically, like, you know, I would say for better or worse, what people want to hear most about is like a game they didn't know about, or like, you know, something that hasn't been announced yet, whatever. Yeah. Which, like, in terms of what a journalist could reveal is not really that important. It's like, well, people will reveal that eventually anyway. So like, you know, if you're a journalist finding that stuff out, all you're really doing is just like moving a schedule forward by a little bit, and potentially putting like developers in a situation where they're like, well, we weren't ready for that to be revealed yet, so that's kind of rough for us.
I'm sorry, but the laugh was that happening for The Last of Us remake. That's right. Been making me chortle for days.
Yeah, no,
please continue.
I saw an article from Hard Drive, the parody publication, yesterday that was like, HBO announces HD remaster of their upcoming Last of Us TV series.
Yep. God, I know this is an aside to an aside, but the hard drive continues to be a treasure, and sometimes their stuff is brutally honest. The last one that cracked me up was what was it? Person complaining about politics in video games is the only person ruining video games. And I'm just like, yo, you can't be posting just the truth. You need to put some humor around your articles.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, you know, that's 2022 for you. But yeah, let's see. Right. So, you know, basically like, people obviously like to, you know what's coming out because they can like spend money on that. So they get excited when you like deliver that kind of like a quote unquote scoop. But, you know, the more revealing ones, the things that I think matter more are like pieces of journalism that actually reveal like what's happening at a company, whether it involves like, frequently these days, like mistreatment of workers, or crunch or things like that. We've seen a lot of reports on those sorts of situations recently from pretty much every website under the sun now, because like there's just so much of it in the industry, and it like burns out so many people and makes it so hard to retain talent in an industry that like right now is actually having like kind of a talent crisis, just in terms of like needing more senior level talent than we have. But yeah, so things like that. And I think that when those sorts of reports are published, people do generally demonstrate a high level of interest in them. Like they do get traffic. I mean, like for example, pretty recently, a couple months ago, we published a report on kind of like the esports team TSM,
Okay.
and sort of like mismanagement over there, and just like just generally poor leadership. It's led to a lot of changes. Like Riot did their own investigation, and like I think the person in question has finally been like put on leave or maybe ousted. But yeah, it was this like big long report about like years of kind of mismanagement and abuse and things like that. And that for a little bit was one of the top traffic stories, like at least for the moment, like concurrence, not like over the course of the year or whatever.
Yeah.
But like one of the top traffic stories on all of the Washington Post that day.
Oh wow.
Like not just our section, the whole thing.
Well, I guess,
so like it was beating politics stories and stuff like that.
I mean, it's something that we've talked a lot about. It's how video games and what would have traditionally been considered nerd culture is now just culture. Esports is big business, and it does intersect massively with just regular culture. I'm never going to be okay with the fact that FaZe Clan is a real thing and no longer a meme to put on a joke from 2012. I'm never going to be okay with that. But it is a huge entity. And
right.
I mean,
Although I don't know. Maybe not as FaZe is maybe not as big as they make themselves out to be based on how they're performing after going public.
Yeah. Sadly, they tried the old... they tried puffing themselves up. It didn't work. Well, I guess that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to sit down with you today, is a large proportion, at least in my humble opinion, of how these things have all come together has been through like live content, or live content. YouTube has become such a huge part of everybody's life, and if you look at like the esports scene and spaces like that, like all an individual has to do is stream just themselves hanging out outside of their matches and games, and giving that inroads to fans to be able to talk to these people creates these massive viewerships, essentially turning a lot of these individuals into personalities just by virtue of putting themselves in front of a camera. Sorry, I think I'm taking my point, and I think I'm running it downhill poorly. I feel like the connective tissue of this explosion of, nerd and gaming culture becoming culture comes from live video stuff. And I guess that was the meat of what I wanted to talk to you about today, because you get to see it all, I see the video games, and I am on Twitch every day, but as I'm sure you've noticed, like the Longship as a whole is a strange little pocket dimension on Twitch. We don't really fit the formula, which is great. Like I get to have chats with you and stuff, but I guess that's where I really wanted to get into the guts of it. Is what is the kind of impact we're seeing? Yes, J-Post, we are weird terrorists.
We're weird terrorists, yeah.
These lot take great joy in messaging with me on the regular. Okay. Let me walk my question back a little bit, because I've just said a lot of words at you. That was a bit of a word salad.
Yeah, no, it was fun though. It was like a little word adventure we went on.
Unfortunately, I now have word tics, and will probably need to be deliced. But no, I guess from your perspective, how has streaming affected all of these things over the last few years?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely like validity to your point that like video, and especially like live video, have had a big impact on sort of games culture becoming culture. I mean, and like I think it's interesting too to see like how it worked on different platforms.
Okay.
Like, I mean, the starting point for that was obviously YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Because YouTube became like, it went from sort of like everyone watching TV in their homes and stuff like that, more traditional, means of consuming kind of like televised content to people making and posting stuff on YouTube. An easy source of that content was video games, because it's pretty simple to sort of just like upload a video of yourself playing a game, talking over it. And so before long, like a whole generation just grew up with, you know, watching games as one of their main sources of entertainment. So then you got all sorts of like video game sound effects and memes kind of creeping into like a cultural lexicon, even when people didn't necessarily play games. I think a good example of that is like the Roblox oof sound that just got removed. People were like, that wasn't just Roblox, that was like in every YouTube video for like a decade. And so yeah, like those sorts of things kind of found their way into culture. And then similarly, yeah, oof, exactly.
I do want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the fact that that got pulled out the same day that hackers leaked the internal documents about Roblox's Chinese expansion, including how they were going to skirt addiction laws. So that was a fun day.
Yeah, Roblox definitely has done some questionable stuff and continues to.
Yep.
We'll see where they go on that front. But yeah, so then you get into like Twitch and live streaming, right? And I mean, once again, then you have like this sort of cross-pollination that happened, because as Twitch got bigger, you started seeing Twitch memes and like Twitch emotes and things like that appearing not just on Twitch, but kind of everywhere. Like you go to, you know, YouTube and people are saying like Pog in like YouTube comments and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, this is sort of the origin of all of that, but now it's everywhere. And then similarly, right, now you have like, I think that the sort of like pandemic was kind of the time where everyone really noticed it when it came to Twitch, because you had a lot of like people saying, well, I'm stuck at home, so I'm going to use Twitch as a means to like connect with people who like maybe are my fans, or just connect with people at all.
Yeah, I mean,
and then you end up getting like, you know, AOC on Twitch, like politicians, people like that. It has sort of all popped off.
I mean, I was going to add that that's essentially what happened with our little corner of the internet. It's like, you know, I was streaming for these lovely folks, and then, you know, post-stream, we just bundle into Discord and play games. In fact, currently, a huge chunk of our lot are playing the new Sea of Thieves expansion over in Discord now, and having us as a second screen, which I fucking love that. Sorry, Biggs threw me off saying, I ain't no Club Penguin. But
no, none of this is. No, I mean, the internet peaked a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's okay. But no, actually, that was one thing I wanted to touch on. Is I think the point where I realized things had changed massively was the H-Bomber guy stream.
Yeah, when AOC called in.
Yeah, that was, I think, the point where I kind of like pushed my chair back a little bit and went, "Oh crap, this is very real now."
Yeah. Also, H-Bomber guy is great. I love him.
I've never had the chance to meet him. I don't get to intersect.
Oh, he's a delightful person.
Oh, that's lovely to hear.
Yep. I rode a roller coaster with him one time. I don't like roller coasters, but it was fun.
Was it for the interview specifically?
No, it was just
roller coasters.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I should have tried to interview him on a roller coaster. That would have been incredible. I should try to do that in general. That would be a good gimmick for a series of videos.
I'm tempted to do In the Nest for future interviews, where I interview people in the crow's nest in Sea of Thieves. I'm very into Sea of Thieves right now.
Nice. Yeah, I can understand that. That game is like very underrated in terms of being a big sandbox for just zany shenanigans. So I get it.
So I guess kind of we had that early pandemic pickup, and we've not really had a like sound the horn, everything is fine, please resume your daily activities. You know, we're in a strange limbo, which I think it's safe to say it's going to be continuing. So like, I guess for late lockdown, you know, partway through 21 into now, like, what are some of the things that you're seeing from your perspective, like the impact streaming's having on people? Is it still continuing through as it was?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, I think that one of the more interesting developments that has happened recently, and one that I covered on the Washington Post, is that like we've hit a point now where like a lot of people are getting like their news through live streams. And so like for a while, for example, you know, like the big news streamer, the kind of main person who did it was Hassan, and he still is. But as other streamers realize that kind of content is popular, they started sort of incorporating it into their streams as well. So I mean, one of the main people on Twitch covering like Johnny Depp Amber Heard, which obviously is like was this massive moment for the internet, was Asmongold, who is generally a World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14 MMO streamer. But then he was dedicating large parts of his day to the trial, just watching it, commenting on it, engaging with his chat about it. Same with XQC, like all the big names suddenly started doing that. And it's like, yeah, I think that one of the big things that's happening here is that when there are these big news moments, people want to like know everything there is to know about them. And the thing that live streaming does, and that TikTok can also do to an extent, is make you feel like you're getting more information even when you're not. When you're like voraciously hungry to know more about something and like you've kind of exhausted your other options, you can go watch your favorite streamer or go watch some TikToks and obtain what feels like novel information, even though in reality it's either somebody just like noticing some small non-indicative thing about like, say, a video of a trial, being like, oh, this is proof that like Johnny Depp's lawyer is in love with him, which was a bonkers, stupid conspiracy theory. Or like, you know, listen to somebody like Asmongold say like, here are my opinions about this, albeit maybe without prefacing them as such in some cases. And in either case, like, it just feels like you're getting more. And so like, yeah, I mean, that was also like a trend across not just Twitch, but like YouTube as well. There are all these YouTubers who like had, you know, built their viewerships on like Elden Ring content in the early part of the year. Then like the trial took off and they just hard pivoted. Like one day to start pumping out Johnny Depp Amber Heard videos. But I think that, yeah, in general, like the fact that all of that was live streamed was such a major element of why it became what it became on the internet. Because like for not the first time, but like kind of for the first time, everyone was able to watch this thing in its entirety for free, very easily and accessibly, and then have other people also like take things from it and add their own commentary. And so, yeah, I think that just in general, we're seeing streamers do more and more sort of like coverage of or interaction with major world events, and that's shaping people's perceptions of them. Because it's like, yeah, if you're getting your news from a source that is immediately coloring that commentary with kind of their own opinions or their own experiences, then like that's how, to some extent, you're going to see it. Like that's just unavoidable.
That's fascinating. I mean, I focus primarily on video games, the video games industry, because it's a sphere that I know. But, you know, I'll sit down with these lovely Mother Hubbards, I'll break down news of the day, how I feel it impacts, and, you know, sometimes how marketing assets hit the rest of the industry. And it's fascinating to see people take that, something we've seen, that kind of deconstruction of media in nerdery and video games, and see that same formula applied to real world events.
Right.
Now, Biggs is making an interesting point, which was, though, I mean, I was too young for it. Like, I heard about it after the fact, but...
Right. The OJ trial.
Yeah, the OJ trial, and that being deconstructed by traditional media.
Right. And so, yeah, I think that's the key difference, right? Is that, like, it was deconstructed quite a lot, but I mean, still by, like, media that fundamentally, like, you know, was able to gatekeep itself off from the rest of the world, was able to, like, sort of decide which specific voices got to talk about it. And the big difference here is that everybody has access to the main tools of kind of, like, information and media dissemination now. Everyone can do it. And, like, you know, in some ways it's good, right? Democratization of information, generally something we want. But in other ways, if people who are not authorities can position themselves as authorities on a topic simply because they're in the right place or because they already had big audiences, and that's all you really need, then, like, that can become problematic, right? That can lead us into a situation where people who don't really know much at all are being like, no, I'm positioning myself as, or being positioned as, the go-to authority on this topic, even though in reality I'm just somebody watching the same video as everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I got. So yeah, there are pros and cons to it, right? But it's definitely sort of like, I think, the way things are going to unfold from now on. Like, my kind of bigger perspective on this is that we've already reached a point where there's basically like an influencer for everything, pretty much no matter what it is, really. Like, there are influencers for every niche you can think about. And I mean, like, those people often, again, because like they are in the right place at the right time, can dictate so much of what like another larger group of people think about something. and like it's really hard to kind of like, I don't know, like, yeah, you just end up with people like very dug in on certain topics. And yeah, we're moving toward a kind of strange fragmented media landscape where there are all these micro influencers like whipping people into frenzies about a bunch of different things, some of which matter, others of which don't. Yeah, it's a weird time.
That's fascinating. Now, do you see it being almost like network trees? You know, you have pivotal information. You have person with large audience. Pivotal individual says "wah," and then from there, "wah" is deconstructed into these different little blips. Or is it just these little sparking pockets that can go from anywhere?
I mean, I think probably the first thing you said, but I mean, I think both of these things can happen. It depends on the situation. I mean, like it's,
the wire tree. I hate. Why am I bringing Waluigi noises into this? God.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm enjoying it. Why not? Keep them coming.
But well, it's one of the interesting things because I only really have perspective on video games and the video games industry. But it is fascinating that you see an individual who is able to put forward something, and then that is deconstructed. Jason Schreier? I always get his
Schreier.
God darn it, I double guessed it. Is definitely one of those individuals. Like him or loathe him, he puts forward something, and that then will be deconstructed by both like individuals and outlets for the rest of the day.
Right.
Are we seeing the same kind of thing in live stream media?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on like which sort of topic you're talking about, but I think that in general that was already a big trend in live stream media, just in a different way, right? Because like all the big streamers talk about each other, and the drama of the day becomes like the content mill of the week for everybody. Like, so if anybody, you know, like for example, I remember like when I covered this for WAPO as well, when Valkyrae did like her blue light skin product line, and everyone just like. And everyone was like, this is really dumb. This is rooted in pseudoscience, so on and so forth. You know, it went from like people sort of saying, hey, just to precaution you, you shouldn't spend money on this because it's kind of like hoaxy, to people being like, all right, now I'm going to like talk about the drama resulting from this for the rest of the week. So it went from like, I'm going to take a principled stand to, there is viewership to be milked from this. And that's kind of how it always goes on Twitch, right? It's like everyone talks about everyone else. And like that's content.
I mean, again, you have an oversight on this that I just simply don't. I'm very, very lucky in that I get to do this full time in this little tiny like pocket. But like, I don't know who the big stream players are. I kind of feel like Matt Berry in the Toast of London. Everyone's like, oh, do you know this streamer? No idea who you're talking about.
Right. It's like you've been frozen in a block of ice for 20 years, and you're like, no clue. Yeah. I'm still surprised that the cars don't have horses anymore.
That is how it feels. And like back when I was working in AAA, it was my job to be aware of who the movers and shakers were in YouTube. Back when you could just know who everybody was. And that landscape has drastically changed as well. So I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's so fascinating to talk to you on these subjects, because it's just a sphere I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah, and it becomes interesting, right? In that, like, I think that there's certainly, yet we still have horsepower. Yeah, exactly. It's very strange. Where did the horses go? Did they make them small? I bet they made them small.
They're just tiny. Just as a quick aside, when you were mentioning Jono's covering Crunch and stuff earlier, Park Programs has the most cursed thing on his desk. It is a copy of E.T. In a little like shadow box frame, and it says, "With enough crunch, anything is possible."
Wow. Yep. Yeah, that is how that game got made. Albeit it was mostly like one person crunching.
Yeah. Well, okay, so this actually leads me neatly onto my next question. Which, while I've been butchering the delivery, I made questions. I did this. I'm doing good for a change. So have there been any other really big surprises from your perspective in like the last year and change?
Let's see. Any really big surprises, like within kind of like the realm of live streaming, or just like video games, or
let's start with live streaming, but video games I'd be again interested to see your perspective on that as well.
Let's see. Any big surprises? Um, let's see. I mean, I think that there have been a few things. I think that, you've seen kind of like some changes within Twitch that have portended maybe not amazing outcomes. Like Twitch itself seems to be now more than ever sort of prioritizing profit over what streamers might like want out of the platform. And so, you saw that article from Bloomberg a little while back about how it seems like they're planning to sort of take away offers for like 70-30 pay splits from streamers, which already were only given out to like very top tier creators. It wasn't like a thing where you would just like make partner and then suddenly get that, as I'm sure you can attest. But
I was lucky enough to have worked with people that were partnered in back when all of those contracts were negotiated on a person by person basis.
Right.
So
as opposed to just like an automated thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
but nonetheless, they and then I did some additional reporting after that. Talked to some people who were like, actually, Twitch stopped doing that at the beginning of 2021. So they've already not been offering those contracts for a little bit. But just generally this like gradual slide away from that sort of a thing into prioritizing ads more and more in a way that I think is probably detrimental to a lot of people's stream experiences. And so you have that side of things. You have a lot of people who used to work at Twitch leaving because they're like, yeah, I wanted to advocate for the community, but Twitch just sort of like transformed into this company that doesn't want people doing that. It can become like actively difficult for your career if you are too prone to, kind of trying to advocate for people who use the platform.
Yes. At least
but then on the other
that's the vibe I've been getting. Again, everybody I know who used to work at Twitch has left. I have no.
Yep.
And I think I mentioned this last time we chatted. I find that surreal because, I got to sit down back before Twitch even had a London office and when they were still courting games companies. So I got to see Twitch as a company very early on. The irony being is that they're now my entire paycheck every month. Like, Twitch is how I'm able to pay the bills, and yet I have no visibility and no contact with the company anymore. It's so weird.
Yeah, and I think that's true for a lot of people. But yeah, then on the other hand, I think that like recently there have been some, some features that do seem like well liked and kind of like well considered. Like let's see, what were some of the things that they like recently announced that they're like adding to the platform? They're doing some good stuff for like seemingly some smart stuff for discoverability. In terms of at least like allowing people to like sort of change the channel. Wait, I'm gonna go through my own articles because I'm blanking right now.
It's
but
okay.
I definitely wrote about some stuff where I was like, oh, good job, like Twitch, you actually thought about it and seemingly launched a good product. Here we go. I'm going to look it up so that I don't have to do any more thinking because it's Thursday and that's just not what I'm about anymore.
Nah.
Let's see.
Thursday, let's get smooth brain. It's fine.
I know, right? Oh yeah, that's right. So I mean, they're doing a built-in charity feature, which is really smart for a lot of reasons. Because for one, like everyone likes to do charity streams, and the other one is some of the companies that used to sort of be intermediaries there, or still are, I guess, are really sketchy. Yeah, I don't know when it's ever going to like drop or if it ever will, but we've had a freelancer working on an article about like some of the extremely sketchy companies involved in Twitch charity stuff for like months.
Oh no! Please tell me Tiltify's not on the list.
No.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, I know soft giving is kind of the big one. Soft giving has been criticized in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, for basically paying people to do charity streams, which is not uncommon in the world of charity, but is like, it doesn't feel good.
No, I will admit, like, naming no names, I have had companies reach out for that, and it's always a bit skeevy. Anyway, sorry. I need to get into my personal philosophies on that one.
Right. But anyway, also like, so Twitch is also doing like shared ban info, which seems like another good tool. Again, these things that are like helping make Twitch actually hopefully safer for people. And like things that the community seems to have been requesting for a long time. And they're like, yeah, we're actually gonna. So like, it's not this like black and white dichotomy of like Twitch hates the community now, they don't care. It's like, no, there are pockets of Twitch, there are people within the company who do care and are like doing a good job. Similarly, like, the sadly and regrettably, the Buffalo shooting was streamed on Twitch. that was
Yes.
obviously like a worst case scenario for the platform. But they got it down so much faster than like Facebook or any other platforms. Like it was up for a couple minutes and they took it out. And like that is a credit to Twitch's like trust and safety department, which even all the people that I've like spoken to who, you know, left Twitch or are currently disgruntled employees, people like that, are like, trust and safety's great though. They fucking they kill it. Um so yeah, I mean, like, you know, I think the thing to keep in mind about Twitch itself is that it is a large and multifaceted company full of people who, like, you know, many of them want to do a good job and want to make things better for streamers and for the community and recognize how special that community is. And then some people, you know, like on the executive level, don't and are definitely doing things that people within the company don't love, but can't really say like, no, you can't do that because unfortunately those people are in charge.
What we've seen, at least from conversations, you know, but occasionally we get to interact with Twitch people at our the sober meets and stuff like that. The Seattle streamers group's pretty close knit, but the teams that are out here in Seattle are very separate from the teams in San Francisco, despite being parts of the same platform. And you know, I wonder if that's a contributing factor to it. It's no longer just an office that you can just go to and chat with everybody. You know, it's a huge operation spread out.
Yeah. I mean, it's spread out, and then also just like, you know, it's owned by Amazon, and that was always going to be a factor. I think that and I've talked to like DJ Weed about this, and he was like, yeah, I think that like, you know, when Amazon first bought Twitch, things kind of continued as normal for a while. But about a year and a half in after the Amazon purchase is when it like really started to feel like, oh, you know, this company is turning into something else. This is now part of this massive machine, and this machine has certain demands. And also like is instead of hiring from sort of the like sector that created this like platform and technology, is instead hiring from like the tech sector and is trying to like transform into a tech company. And, you know, that obviously brings with it all sorts of baggage and all sorts of approaches that don't necessarily fit Twitch like a glove, because Twitch is its own thing.
A wonderfully bizarre little pocket of the internet, but yes, it's very much its own ecosystem.
Right.
Now, the other one I was asking about was also like things that have surprised you recently in gaming.
Let's see. In gaming.
Because again, your perspective of like both the industry and the media coming from gaming is very, very unique.
Yeah, let's see. That's such a big question, though. What has happened in gaming this year? Let's see. In hindsight, it's a no-brainer, but I think at the time when it happened, it was a little bit surprising to see Elden Ring catch on the way it did. To not just be like, you know, the new Souls game that hardcore people are into. But that like, you know, it became, again, like we were talking about earlier, one of those crossover moments of video game cultures being culture. And it's like all these people who didn't play games, all these people like on my Twitter timeline who are just like media reporters or internet culture reporters, like, and now I'm writing about Elden Ring. Like I see Elden Ring everywhere. And like I ended up doing a piece on part of why I thought this was, which is that Elden Ring is extremely easy to generate brief clips of that are also super funny. Because there's so many ludicrously entertaining ways to suddenly die. And like that just lent itself really well to like, here's this clip everyone's sharing on like Twitter or TikTok or wherever.
It does,
and it just
sense. Because with the other Soulsian games, yes, there were ways you could very, very quickly die, and they were hilarious if you knew the game. Like, if you could understand why the bright red person drops a bomb on you or what have you. Whereas Elden Ring's design is a lot more visually clear. I don't know if that's just an intentional thing or what have you, but yes, it's a lot easier to understand when someone gets hilariously murdered in Elden Ring.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, I think also like in the time since the Souls games became a thing, and now like cultural literacy around like, I mean, games is way higher. Just like a lot more people know what it looks like for certain things like combat and death to happen in a game. And then B, like cultural literacy around fantasy is a lot higher. Like Game of Thrones just kind of, you know, had its big moment, and so now fantasy's totally mainstream instead of being a nerd thing.
That's a very
Yeah.
good point.
So like all of these sort of forces coalesced to create that moment. Let's see, another kind of like big, I guess, not surprise in video games, but one that like a pretty major trend to me is that, like I was mentioning earlier, there's a pretty big talent shortage at this point among like the major studios, because they all want senior level talent, and there is a limited number of people who like have those skill sets and have been doing this for long enough, for a variety of reasons. One of them is that working in games lends itself to burnout, and so there's a lot of brain drain at top levels because people just eventually are like, I'm tired of this and I've made my money and I want to go retire now, because games are just like exhausting to make and you can only do so many before you're just sort of done.
Well,
And then
there
the
is
other
an-
one,
there is an
the more
additional-
pernicious.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to say there is another element to this one which is kind of a reverse of the 90s, 2000s philosophy. So it used to be you work in a small studio, you grind your XP so you can be good enough to then go and work at one of the big studios, you know.
Mhm.
The goal being to work at Blizzard. But what at least I'm seeing industry-wise is that the goal is now to work for yourself, to make the game you always wanted to. So it's
Yeah.
like now you survive AAA long enough to then be able to go and like start a studio with your friend or just make your own game. So
Yeah.
the lack of industry talent at the top level is because now you don't need 50 people to make a game engine to make a game. You can just use
Right.
Unreal. So if you're good enough, you could just go, peace out, Mr. Blizzard, I'm making my own stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of it. I would say that's only a small part of it, though. I think the bigger
Okay.
part of it is Varbles in chat hit the nail on the head. It's seniors only, don't train juniors.
Ah, yes,
It's
no
like,
give, only
you know,
throw.
Right, exactly. So like, I mean, there's a world in which all of these major studios could be putting a lot of like time and effort into training junior workers into senior positions, and then like, you know, basically backfilling the problem themselves. But instead what they're doing is being like, okay, there's this limited pool of senior talent, period, and we want to attract those people. We want to like make it really attractive to work for us if you're already someone who has been doing this forever and already are at that like place in your career where you can make a lot of money and like have all these benefits and things like that. And so, you know, once again, it's this way that the games industry caters to like people at the top, but then people in the middle and at the bottom have a rough time, a bad time, let's say.
You know what? That's a thing I hadn't really considered. You know, there's a lot of people in the industry whose job it is to hire people, hire high talent, like recruiters in studio working to bring in the best. And
Right.
a studio culture of promoting people up kinda subverts that. If it is your job to be the person that brings in the talent, like training up a bunch of green beans, it's counterintuitive. But, you know, I can't comment as I haven't worked there for a good long while, but, you know, one of the great things about being at the Creative Assembly was that the people were brought up. You know, I joined there as a rank and file QA person, and I left, you know, as an established community person. Like,
Right.
you know, I was brought up, I was trained, I was given the tools I needed, and I've seen a lot of my friends from the same sphere be able to do that, which has been real cool.
Right.
I guess I'm just using this as an excuse to pat CA on the back again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are also problems that compound on themselves, right? Because I mean, in order to train people up like that, you need a culture of mentorship.
Yes.
And if you have a lot of people who like, you know, hit the top and are like, yeah, I'm tired of working in games, and they leave, you have a limited pool of mentors. And so it gets harder and harder to train people up. The other thing is, the more time you spend training people, the less time that you have them just like working on games.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases,
Eric was saying
especially
the
if you're
same
like
thing.
crunching to get a game over the finish line.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you just end up with something that, much like other elements of capitalism, to your point, is not sustainable.
Yes.
It's just all about like, get the next product out. Do that as, you know, quickly as possible, no matter what the cost is to people working at a company. And even if it means that in the future, we're going to be like, oh, we're having a shortage of talent. Oh no, what do we do about that? It's just like, think about that problem later. Right now, get the thing out, meet shareholder expectations, etc. But what that has resulted in, to an extent, right, and this is sort of like, again, the double-edged sword element of a moment like this, is that there are a lot of companies now trying to offer more and more benefits in order to lure in senior level talent. And so you see things like the proliferance of the 4-day work week as an idea within game studios, which a
Yeah.
few years ago was basically unheard of. And now you have like I did a big story earlier this year on Blackbird, the studio that's doing Homeworld and games like that, Hardspace Shipbreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they have moved over entirely to a 4-day work week now. They did a series of tests toward the end of last year and the beginning of this year to see if like that would just be a thing where they could, sustain it and get enough work done on their games to justify it. And yeah, they're like, it's been great for us. Like it allowed us to have the energy and bandwidth to sort of like finish a lot of Hardspace Shipbreaker in a way where like people were burning out previously and were just like, it was kind of a disaster for a minute.
Okay.
And so yeah, it was one of these things where like, the incentive there from the standpoint of a studio like Blackbird, it wasn't purely out of the kindness of their heart that they decided to move over to a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
It was definitely like, we want to incentivize high level talent coming to us instead of going to like, a bigger, more established name. Because like, they're sort of in that midpoint between like, I would say like they're a AA studio, right? They're not quite AAA, but they want AAA talent and they want to scale up in a AAA way. And so like, one of the ways that you can get those people to come over is you can say, well, you can go work at like, I was going to say Blizzard, but no one wants to work at Blizzard right now. But you can go work at like some big Ubisoft studio or an EA studio or what have you. And like have the prestige and get paid a lot.
Yeah.
Or you can like maybe get paid a little bit less, but you can have 3-day weekends every week forever if you come work for us. And so it's stuff like this, right? And you're seeing a lot of studios like try to staff up in that way. Bungie's another one right now where like now that Sony bought them, it's just they're trying to attract all the talent they can rapidly to scale up and make a big live service game for Sony. Yeah, things like this. And then that like sort of also compounds on another big surprise from this year, which is just consolidation, right?
Yes.
And I mean, like the games industry has had periods of consolidation in the past where like suddenly bigger companies bought up a lot of smaller companies. But I think it's happening right now in a more mainstream facing way. Like, I mean, again, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard. Like, I don't think a year ago anyone would have seen that coming.
No.
And now like everyone's doing it. Sony bought Bungie. Let's see, Take-Two bought Zynga. It seems like NetEase is very interested in acquiring a majority stake in Ubisoft. Where we're going from, already small AAA industry to like contracted, itsy bitsy AAA industry that like once all of this. Oh, go ahead.
It's interesting you bring up the Microsoft acquisition because, and again, this is all conversations I've had with people, so I don't have data to back this up. But the conversations I've had has been the studios that have been Microsoft acquired have been getting like the additional big company benefits, but none of the old school, we've bought you, now it's time to start meddling usuals that we've seen. Like we've seen how EA handles companies. It's not a good time. And what's been interesting is that that's leading into this idea of they want sustainable, reproducible quality games rather than the next big banger, with the idea being everybody on Game Pass.
Bingo. Yep.
It's not about shifting consoles and units anymore. It's about just landscape domination. Right.
Well,
they seem to be approaching that through basically creating something that studios want to be a part of. It's like, hey, if we buy your studio, you get all the Microsoft benefits. We're not going to tell you what to do, and you're going to have less stress to create the stuff. Like that's a very attractive offer.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a wonderful offer right now, right? It's a miraculously good offer compared to the rest of the games industry.
Yeah.
But the thing about something like this is that it is always temporary.
Yep.
Because if you want to look at the other side of that, what ultimately ends up happening, look at Netflix. So what these services do is right now, like Game Pass is a loss leader, right? Microsoft is not making money off of it. The subscription price is too low. As soon as they get enough people like onboarded, they will probably at least double that subscription price, because why not? Already like Netflix and services like that cost way more money. So like there's a precedent for it. They can get away with it. And then also like similarly, like after a certain point, they will generate enough content for the service that they'll be able to start saying like, well, we're going to like cancel this game and that game because like these other games are not performing well enough. Like, I mean, again, if you're aping Netflix, then you run into the same problems, which is that you essentially have this like platform where eventually your content, like what you're making for it, is dictated by algorithms. And like, how do we optimize for like this audience and that audience? How do we like take what worked previously and rework it into something that works again? And then at the end of that, you also have a devaluing of labor. Right now, labor is highly valued. Right now, everybody wants to get senior level staff so they can build out these games. But once they've turned these services into things that people view as like relatively indispensable, then they can start cutting people and start cutting projects, and like also, you know, start devaluing workers. And that's also part of why like right now, like unionizing is really important, right? This was a thing that like I came across in my 4-day workweek story. I'm actually going to read the quote just because I thought it was very salient, which is that like, you know, right now companies are again trying to attract talent, so they're giving workers all sorts of like cool things that they would want.
Yeah.
But that's not that will not last. And the thing about the way that these benefits are being handed out right now is that it's fully at the company's behest, and there's nothing guaranteeing that those benefits are set in stone, right? Like one day, out of the blue, a company could just say, okay, 4-day work is over. It's gone. We're not doing it anymore. And employees would have no recourse.
Yeah.
They would just be like, well, that blows. So yeah, this was from Emma Kanema, who works at Code CWA. They've helped Activision Blizzard folks unionize. They helped like, I think, Google workers and other people like that unionize. But anyway, they said, maybe today the bosses are friendly and have a policy you like, but if circumstances change or there's new management or the company gets bought out and does a reorganization, when the going gets tough, and eventually for all companies, for all industries, it does, it's the workers' interests, the workers' work-life balances that are going to be the first thing out the window.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you have this like gold rush boom period right now, but it's just not, it's not built to last. Yeah, no more forever work from home option.
Yes.
As Park Programs just said.
Because
yeah,
it's unless there is an additional benefit that the employers are getting from that, it's unlikely they continue. One of the examples that I've been using is Infinite Holiday. I know that's more of a tech company thing than a games company thing, but companies advertising, yeah, we have infinite PTO. You can take as much time off as you want. But what that turns into is that the amount of time off you can take is not guaranteed and is drastically changeable. Like, when things are great, don't worry about it. Take 2 days off a week. Don't worry about it. But as soon as anything gets shaky, it's like, I'm really sorry. You wanted to take a week off, but it's more. Things are busy now. Oh boy.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I would take it a step further. My personal opinion on this, and I recently worked at a company that gave you infinite PTO. Infinite PTO is a trap. Infinite PTO is fake. There's studies about this. Like, people who have infinite PTO generally take less time off than people who have a finite amount of PTO. Because at least, like, you know, and like having that number in your head, like you get to toward the end of the year, whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to use up the rest of my days, because why wouldn't I? Whereas with infinite, it's like, well, maybe I'll like take a spring break. Oh, spring rolls around. There's not time. Oh, I'll just shove it to summer. There wasn't time over the summer. Maybe I'll wait until winter.
Yeah.
Then a whole year goes by and you didn't take a vacation. The best approach to this that I've heard, that I really like, is from Supergiant, creators of Hades, Pyre, games like that. I interviewed them about this a while ago.
Yeah.
And their approach is that if you hit the end of the year and like somebody has not used up all their PTO, the company makes you take time off. They are like, yeah, you have to use up your 2 weeks left, like, or whatever. You just have to, like, take a vacation, go take care of yourself.
I've been on the receiving end of a policy like that, where I just got told, stop coming into work. We're throwing you out for the next 2.5 weeks. But I do like that we're getting to this point where these discussions are happening very publicly. Discussions like this, discussions about pay, discussions about conditions has been very quiet. Sorry if we covered this last time we were chatting, but for me it's kind of a little poignant moment, which was in the run-up to Red Dead Redemption 2. Loads of people were shocked to find out how brutal the crunch was at Rockstar. And the thing is, the industry has always known. It's been an open secret that, you know, Rockstar grinds their people into a fine powder.
Mm-hmm.
It's very unlikely to work at a UK game studio that doesn't have a few Rockstar survivors. And with love and respect, it's kind of like working with a rescue dog. They've got quirks and issues they're working through from the after effects of being in this brutal environment. But it's never talked about publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And now this stuff is coming out. Now the stuff is coming to light. It's very much changing the discussion, you know?
Right.
And
I think that's another like kind of nice thing that we've seen this year. Not nice, but you know, like it's progress.
Yeah.
Which is that I think a lot of these studios that previously were sort of these black boxes are also kind of having their bad habits revealed. I mean, like there's also been stories this year about like Nintendo's QA departments, right? Previously it was just like, yeah, you know, Nintendo, they magically create all of these like super high quality games with like very few issues and they just release them and it's great. And now it's like, oh yeah, no, there's a tremendous human toll underlying all of that and they also need to change. Even Nintendo is not like immune to kind of these broader industry problems.
Yeah, big publisher QA has been a thing that again has been known about behind the scenes for a long time. Hell, aside from I think it was Scott Kurtz's In the Trenches, like again, QA wasn't talked about. Even feckin' Mythic Quest, for as great a representation as it was of AAA, like the fact that they had the two testers having their own space and all the no. The studio that size would have had 40 people in a grey box room with a if you die, another tester will take your place.
Right. Yeah, and then once per day they open the cage door and throw in a single bag of Doritos and everyone fights over it.
There's a 15-minute break during it, and if you are just over, but it's good to see this stuff come to light. It's
yeah, and it seems like Rockstar is, at least based on that recent report from Bloomberg, like dedicated to some degree of change. You know, we'll see how that comes to fruition. I mean, again, I think to the point I was making earlier, why are they doing this? It's not the kindness of their hearts. It's because, again, there is a talent shortage in the games industry, and everyone's realizing that they need to shape up, or else they will have tremendous brain drain and not be able to make these like ludicrously high quality, extremely high fidelity video games that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And, you know, I could not even count the number of man hours that go into them.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, games are still an expanding environment. You know, if you don't make it, somebody else will. You know, if you don't... I'm sorry, I'm just putting myself in the big studio mentality, but if you don't get this talent, that talent will find work elsewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, as you can hear, the guinea pigs are very, very enthused by this. Obviously, the guinea pigs are very pro-union. It's not just because they're getting a crap ton of hay right now. Sorry, we got the guinea pig tower is just there in line.
Also, Vanabeast just asked, does the victor in the Dorito break become the next Dorito Pope? Gonna have to ask Jeff Keighley about that.
Keighley! Sorry, I was drinking with friends last night and I was trying to explain the Dorito Pope moment, and that's some weird games history. Oh, that's some weird games history.
Yeah.
But now Keighley's become a huge focal point. I mean, shit, do we want to talk about next year's Battle of the E3s? Reed Pop versus Keighley?
You mean versus E3 versus Key 3?
Damn it, that's way better! But yeah, the fact that Summer Games Fest will be a physical event the same time as Repop's attempted cast of Resurrection on E3.
Right.
Keighley, who saw that we're all going to be stuck indoors, was like, no, we'll just do it as a stream. There are people already watching it.
Right.
And he's now become a huge focal point of the industry.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be interested to see how, like, because at the very least, having Reed Pop run E3 makes more sense than the ESA, who have never been reliable, have never been particularly good at this. I mean, you want to talk about like right place, right time? They definitely just like...
Imagine if the ESA had doxed every journo. Imagine if that had happened.
Know, right? Yeah, what if that happened? Or what if they also, like, then in the next year or the year after that, managed to also dox, like, everyone else who had signed up via a system that, like, just lets you search people's names and see their addresses? Yeah,
I'm
that
sorry,
seems like it
it's not
might be
something
bad.
it's not something to laugh about, but it's just I don't know what else to do, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, it's definitely better that ReedPop is running it, but it's also still this sort of thing where, I think one of the big lessons of the pandemic that everyone kind of learned is that you don't really need this massive in person event.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you can achieve the same level of attention or near the same amount with a digital event. That is what kind of, Key 3 or Summer Game Fest, whatever you want to call it, taught us. And like the winds were already blowing that way because of Nintendo Directs.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh, Nintendo's just over here doing their own thing and getting tons of attention and handily winning the console war, making everyone else look stupid.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, there's something to this. And now, Sony has State of Play, Microsoft has their occasional things. All the big players are already doing this. And like, they're doing it without spending all this money to fly tons of people out to LA every year.
Yeah.
And like all of these big booth placements and spending all this money on convention floor space. Like, it just, I think even with two major players duking it out next year, it's still, I still don't see it making sense in the long run. I think that whatever ends up happening will still be closer to like a PAX than it will be an E3, because then that's just the way that you actually make money off these things now. There's not really like a profitable version of what E3 was before.
No, and it never found it never found its feet to be an event to attend. It was always an event for those to, take footage, take coverage, show it to the rest of the world. Again, sorry, I know I'm saying stuff that I talked about the long ship a whole bunch and things that we all know. It's just E3 was never a fun event to go to. It was great seeing everybody, but the actual show floor was very much.
Then you wait in line for 3 hours to play 15 minutes of God of War. Yeah,
hooray!
Love it. Right. And also, like, it was an event where, there's finite physical space, and so a lot of smaller games get crowded out.
Oh, yeah.
That was the eternal problem. And now that problem is being solved by things like, Steam Next Fest and stuff like that, where just, you can, like, hop onto Steam and play demos of games that aren't out yet.
Yeah.
And, like, get a much better sense of what they're like without having to wait in line. And the bonus for that for developers is that it's linked right into these systems people are already going to use to buy those games. So you play a demo of a game on Steam, then wishlist it immediately, know when it's going to come out. Like, that's so much more effective in terms of like developers making money and selling their games than something like E3 ever could be, because it's all more direct and convenient for regular people.
Yeah.
So it's like, again,
from talking with industry friendos, like those people that get involved in the Steam Next Fest demos do see a huge uptick in interest, even in titles that wouldn't usually be getting that kind of attention.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you saw it from your perspectives, and again, this is, I'm the toast of London of Twitch, I'm in my weird little bubble, but at least from what I saw, a lot of content creators were just starting a stream and being like, cool, we're going to go to Steam Next Fest, we're going to pick a bunch of demos that seem interesting and just have a go. And it seemed to get a lot of interest. And going back to the expensive Sony booth and setup, I think one of the things that became very interesting was it was before Last of Us Part 2 came out, where Sony did their 3-sectioned event, where they started off in a barn, then they went to another place, and then...
Yeah, I was there for that. It was weird.
How was that?
I mean, a lot of strangely timed walking. It's like, all right, we're done with this section of like our demonstration. Now move to the next room. Now stand here. Yeah. Bizarre.
Well, what's so surreal about that is that it was like it inconvenienced everybody. Everybody watching it had these long slots of just watching industry professionals walking from place to
shuffle
place.
Into another room.
Yeah. We saw Kojima was there. Everyone went, "Hey!" And that was about it. But it was weird and drawn out and very strange. And the majority of people were watching streams of it at home. So it was like, it inconvenienced the people that went. So there wasn't anything that you as an individual could bring us as the viewing public that we weren't getting from the streams that we were seeing. And those streams were then weirdly disconjointed because of moving the physical audience around. Like, it was like misstep atop misstep. And you know, for regardless of your feelings on Keeley, like, dude worked out. What do people want? They want demos, exclusives, rapid fire goodness, and
Right.
condensed all of the nonsense into like a digestible formula, like an hour of non-stop nonsense. Except for the fact that someone really needs to buy Troy Baker some socks. Did my head in. Sorry, now I'm just ranting. But the last Summer Games Fest, why doesn't Troy Baker wear socks? Someone explain this to me.
Wait, I didn't actually know he doesn't wear socks. What?
So they had a whole big thing about the remake of The Last of Us and the TV show and stuff, and they had, it was Troy and I hate that I'm blanking on that performer's name.
Yeah. The voice actor or the actress who plays Ellie.
Yeah, I'm a bad fan. But they had them on stage for an interview section, which I think was meant to be more of the reveal, but that stuff had leaked earlier in the day. And Troy was wearing shoes with no socks on, and for some reason can't. What? Does he have a PO box? Can we just send him a multi-pack of socks? But jumping back, Eric makes an interesting point that I think that with the decentralized game announcement streams have kind of messed with the advertising landscape, where you only get news from companies that you're already like enfranchised to, because no one wants to juggle every company doing everything.
Right. So like it draws pre-existing fans, but it doesn't draw new people. Like the people who watch Nintendo Direct are always going to watch that. They're not going to necessarily watch, like, for example, like Wholesome Games Direct and stuff like that. These smaller things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is a problem. But I mean, it's still like you get some centralization through things like Summer Game Fest, because like you have sort of like the mainstream or the main series of like YouTube channels that are kind of passing you around to the next ones. I think it's still more effective overall than like E3, which is just like a giant circus.
Oh, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. We did a rebroadcast of Summer Games Fest, so we got to have that experience of like sitting around watching the conferences. We may get to do E3 Bowl next year, which will be, if E3 ends up finally keeling over, will be the last one. But that's what we used to do.
E3 keeling over.
Hey!
There we go.
The coffee's kicking in. I'm waking up. I'm getting my groove back. But no, in the past we would do this more of a comedy bit, but we would cover all the press conferences like it was a sports match. So we get dressed up like sports commentators and we just make up nonsense rules and things. And it was definitely interesting to see how much bloat and how much confusion there is, and how little a lot of studios, or I should say publishers, understood what people wanted from them. Like every year, without fail, one of the big five would have a long, drawn-out, like 3-hour nonsense fest with things that nobody wanted to see. Without fail, Nintendo was guilty of it as well. Like, the last time they did one of their From the E3 show floor shows during that space, it, at least as I remember it, was a disaster.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean, like, I think that again, like, this is all kind of a result of like the means by which people can give feedback, and it becoming more and more direct and more easy to like for companies to look at it, parse.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you have to remember that, like during sort of this earlier era of these presentations, like a lot of companies were not as online as they are now. They weren't being run by younger people who are online. They weren't really tapped into that. They weren't clued into what people wanted from any of this in that way. And so, yeah, they would just do like whatever, some executives thought up or what have you.
Sorry,
and now like it's much easier to measure the reaction to all of these things. There are all these tools built into every online platform that give you like actual direct metrics on all sorts of stuff. And so they can optimize for all of that. Like they just, they got savvy.
Yeah, my chortling was just when you said what executives think people want, and my brain immediately went to Ubisoft's Mr. Caffeine.
Yeah, or Ridge Racer, all that stuff. Yeah.
Poor Konami.
Yep.
Sorry, if I ever went for a doctorate, it would probably be in like E3 history, because I have a weirdly encyclopedic knowledge of like different years and strange elements. But
yeah.
Well, So I guess this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. And I know we were talking about more real-world topics, but, you know, events like, you know, Keith Reilly and stuff like that. Look, you set me off. You set me off on the punch.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can underplay the rebroadcast element. Like, back in the day, you either had to find a site that was streaming it specifically, or, you know, read through somebody's like live blogging of the announcements and the events, and then wait for the trailers to pop up and stuff like that. Now you can just, like, whoever it is that you enjoy watching on this Twitch.television, you can just tune in, and they're going to be broadcasting the whole thing plus whatever they want to add. So it's the same feed disseminated multiple times. And that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I can't see how I can't see how a traditional from the show floor setup is going to be able to top that, because, you know, ReedPop would need to get everyone agreeing to their E3 to then also agree to some kind of rebroadcast on Twitch or something along those lines. You know, for Keighley Fest, there's a quick form you fill out and you say, I want to do a rebroadcast of this, and they go, hey, you're done. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're copyright striking people that do it without that. Sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that ReedPop will probably be savvy enough to, like, you know, have a pretty major online component. Again, the ESA was just totally out of touch on that front. And, like, you know, was limiting the number of people who could rebroadcast E3 in 2021, which led to, like, a big controversy, Jeff Keighley calling them out, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think ReedPop won't do that. I think that they will be more like, yeah, anyone can rebroadcast this. But the bigger question will be, like, how much will the major players play ball with them at all in regards to this? I still feel like we're headed toward a year where, like, EA and, like, I don't know, Sony or whoever, like, will be like, we just don't really see a value in going to this, and so it'll just kind of be the same thing again. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to keep being sort of, you know, companies doing their own things, because why wouldn't they get to control all of it? Why would you do something where you can only control part of it when you can get the same result and control all of it?
Yeah, you
Just
don't have to
easier
compete
that way.
with everybody else. Because I
Don't have to worry about, like, nasty journalists saying mean things about your games.
I mean, there's nothing that I can say on this subject that the Devolver Digital pressers haven't said directly. And again, props to that whole team for being scarily on the pulse each time.
Yeah. I feel like those are not press conferences. Those are modern art projects.
I fucking love them. Every year when they do a new one, we do like a rewatch of all of them to then watch the next one in the series. That's just our little
Nice.
our little tradition now.
Yeah, it was very funny, actually, because, like, you know, obviously we at WAPO, like, covered Summer Game Fest and everything.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, we were doing, like, our press conference schedule of, like, here's what we need to be online for.
Yep.
Here's what we need to sort of, like, make sure we're, like, watching to ensure that we're covering everything up to the moment. And, like, you know, I come from, like, a very like a games media background, so, like, I'm very familiar with Devolver, but other people at WAPO not so much. And so yeah, we were, like, going through the list, and I was like, don't worry, you do not, for coverage purposes, you don't need to watch that one. I guarantee you it's not going to yield any news. It's just going to be really it's just going to be very weird.
No, dude, you had a chance. You had a chance to mess with your co-workers. All right, Greg, you're going to be covering Devolver. I'm gonna don't worry, you don't need to watch anything. We need very serious coverage on this one. And then fucking Shinji Mikami shows up in a fucking RoboCop 2 mech, and they shot for blink recreated a bit from the fucking never-ending story. You know, Washington Post Greg's just going to be there, confused, bewildered, a little bit scared. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, very scared. Yeah.
Sorry, I meant to tell you how to do your job. Hopefully, sorry, I've made up a co-worker. I don't know if you actually work with a Greg, but hopefully.
Sadly, no. But thank you for inventing a Greg for me. I mean, it's like it's in the grand Twitter tradition of, like, you know, inventing a guy. You just made up a guy.
Just made up a guy.
Yeah.
Washington Post Greg doesn't know how lucky he is to have a coworker like you.
I know, right? I'm saying this to him every day, and he never listens or replies. I think part of that is down to him not being real, but the other part of it is that, you know, he just doesn't see what he's got. And that's on him.
He doesn't know how good he's got it.
Yep.
So there was one other intersection, and by the way, so friends, those of you that've been asking questions for Nathan, I've been scribbling them down, and there was one that Megaboss was asking earlier, and I wanted to touch on this one because we have a Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out.
We do, in fact.
And more so than anything else, I think the last couple of years and lockdown has just skyrocketed the interest and popularity around tabletop stuff because of live streams of it. What have you seen from your perspective, you know, and beyond just like, you know, Critical Role's influence, but just the massive spike in people playing these, you know, campaigns on Twitch?
Yeah, I mean, how do you mean? Like in regards to like the connection to like the D&D movie, for example? Like,
sorry, I guess the D&D was just a bit of a hyperbole start for me, but what impact have you seen that these streams have had on, I guess, both culture and streaming culture?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, like they got really big as a result of the pandemic, in part. I mean, like already Critical Role has been around forever.
Yeah.
And like that was actually an interesting tidbit of the Twitch leak, is that the single highest paid channel is Critical Role. And I mean, I'm certain that's because like they have a deal with Twitch, right? So like that money was factored into the like leaked figures.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they make millions of dollars. But yeah, that which just demonstrates like the amount of value Twitch sees in Critical Role. Yeah, I mean beyond that, like I think that in general, what those streams and podcasts and everything else have done is have sort of demystified D&D, right? I think that for a time, you know, people knew that it existed. They knew that it was this game that had been popular since like the 70s. But I think that it was seen as either like for nerds in this sort of like derogatory way, or in this way where it was like everyone thought it was really complicated. They're like, oh, there are all these dice and all this math, and I don't know how to do any of that. So like even people who were interested would be like, I just don't know like where to start. And so then being able to watch people play these games regularly and watch them have like a lot of fun with it, and you know, like just sort of essentially just improv, and like they're just dice sometimes. People are like, oh, it's that simple. Like that's all it really takes. I was under the impression it was this much more like gargantuanly complicated thing. And so I think that's been one of like the really big effects, is just people being like, oh, no, I can play this game easily. I can literally like go online, use like an online version of it, and play it with my friends right now.
And that's fucking rad. It's been interesting to see, and I guess kind of bringing it to the D&D film is the way in which it's being done, what it's focusing on, and what people have been commenting on about it seem to be a lot more in depth, seem to be a lot more. I'm trying to think how to phrase it. You know what? I'll come back and around to that one. It just, the structure of the film seems to be very, very different from what we would usually expect from a fantasy fair from such a big production. You know, we're getting a bunch of kleptomaniac nonsense characters more in keeping with an actual D&D campaign, rather than like the archetypal warrior, hero, wizard, etc.
Right. Well, that's what you pretty much have to do, because otherwise, like, all you'd be doing is slapping the Dungeons and Dragons name on a like generic fantasy movie. And like there's no appeal in that in either direction. There's no appeal in like the license, because people don't care about the license on its own. And there's no appeal in like yet another genera fantasy, because I mean, like, what? Amazon's about to put out a Lord of the Rings show where every episode costs as much as a movie. Like, you don't need generic Dungeons and Dragons fantasy movie, because you're already being well catered to right now in much more like expensive ways. So yeah, I mean, like, they pretty much had no choice but to be like, yeah, we're gonna make it, you know, like lighthearted and fun and sort of like in line with what you get out of a bunch of people sitting around a table being like, hey, I know that my friend made this really elaborate world, but how can I mess with it? Like, I mean, that's the direction I would want them to go in. Is like, make it about as meta as you can get with it, where like the first thing that players do is be like, okay, so you, the DM, want me to go sort of in that general direction. What if I turn around and face the wall and try to dig through that wall that you put in the world and see where that goes? And then the DM says, okay, yep, you can do that.
Roll for strength.
I wanted to do some other stuff, but we'll do your thing instead.
I mean, it's collaborative storytelling. It's feckin' grand. None of you'll need me to tell you, but it's just been interesting to see the genuine care that's been put into at least what we can see at this point. And Critical Role on Twitch is a huge part of that being brought into the mainstream. And now we have, I mean, I guess Hammond Quest has come and gone, but there's been major productions with very, very large names that are just playing D&D.
Well, also, wasn't there like a I think this circulated online. There was word of like some sort of secret, like ongoing. I don't think it was maybe it was a Harmon related thing, like some sort of ongoing secret D&D game that only celebrities could get into for a long time. That like had a rotating cast.
I've never heard of this.
It wasn't like it wasn't like a podcast or anything. It was just like a game they played for fun, and like it was just like a
That's cool.
In addition to Hollywood being filled with like secret sex parties, there's also like secret D&D parties.
Like a secret nerd cabal with a handshake.
Right.
I mean, it's a topic we've all covered. It's now much more, publicly acceptable to be into nerdery. Henry Cavill's careened forward on this.
Right. Yeah, he has to explain to everyone the difference between Warhammer and Warcraft. Was that what he was interviewed about at some point?
Yes. And it was about him painting minis and stuff.
Right. If you aren't good enough for the secret D&D, they give you the distant second consolation prize of a sex party.
I'm sorry. Your character's been sadly slain by the evil lich. Now, if you'd like to come on downstairs, there'll be cocaine and orgies.
Right. You go down into the sex dungeon, and you're like, oh, man, I was hoping for a regular dungeon.
Fucking yo. Wait, did Jerry Bruckheimer had a hockey league? Jeez. Now, I do like Stammering's idea that the after credit scene should be it's all the actors around a table and Hugh Grant's the DM. That would be perfect. I've also one of those things. If I had 1,000 hours to feck around, I'd love to recut the original D&D movie with people actually playing around the table, and that's the result. Jeremy Irons is playing the peak villain impersonation by DM. It's perfect.
Park Program said Adam West got kicked out of an orgy for role playing, so this all tracks. I raise you the idea that I'm not sure if Adam West was ever not role playing in his entire life.
Hey, I brought you on the show to talk about stuff, not to blow minds. Thank you. That's gonna haunt me for a good while. So I've got a light and fluffy question for you now.
Alrighty.
Current game that you're hooked on.
Oh, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Yeah. I've never played the first two, but people were basically saying like, hey, they finally did it. They finally made like the game they've been trying to make this whole time. And like I guess it's so far the narrative doesn't really feel like it's hyper connected to the first two games.
Okay.
So it's just like, a good gigantic JRPG that I'll never finish, and I've already made my peace with that. But I'll probably like put 40 hours into it or something and be like, yeah, this was a good, nice time. JRPGs are always comfort food. It's just like a big anime series you can play. So yeah, I started that the other night, and did the classic thing of being like, I want to spend an hour or two getting into this, and then played it for like 5 hours instead. Like after I get done with this, I'm probably just gonna go turn on my Switch and start playing it some more.
That sounds fucking great. Yo,
yeah.
Maybe you have some insight into this. How come that wonderful Wii U, I think it was Xenosaga, the transforming robots versus dinosaurs?
Oh, wait, transforming robots versus dinosaurs.
Because was it Xenoblade Saga? Hang on, let me.
I mean, there were a couple. There was at least one Xenoblade game for Wii U, yeah, I think, and then it later got ported to Switch in some capacity.
Thank you, DX Man. Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Oh yeah.
where you had a robot that transforms into a vehicle and you can fight dinosaurs with it. And
Yeah, sounds good.
why have we not gotten a proper re-release of that yet?
Did we not? Did it not get re-released in any capacity? I thought that like at least one of the early Xenoblade games got re-released on Switch kind of recently.
See by the back tan.
I have to look this up.
Yeah, no, sadly, by my understanding, it's still just a Wii U exclusive.
Huh. I mean, you know, I feel like given the trajectory of things in recent times, Nintendo doesn't plan to leave money on the table when it comes to bringing Wii U games over. So
Point.
probably they'll get to it. But yeah, I mean, also like they bought Monolith, like they own the company that makes these games now. So like, I feel like there's no reason not to put it out because it's there and like it would be relatively simple, hopefully.
I mean,
But yeah, I don't know. Beats me.
DX Man saying it's one of the few remaining titles from the Wii U that hasn't been ported.
Huh. Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm a giant robots fan, so it's like we don't get much love. It's getting better. Bandai Namco have now realized people kind of like Gundams in English language territories. But it's I don't know. You have a lot of industry knowledge and things, so I wondered if you had the scoop on that one.
I do not, unfortunately. But on the upside, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 also has giant robots, so
Yes.
you know, if you want to sate that part of your appetite, it's still potentially the game for you.
The only reason that I probably won't be immediately is they just dropped the demo for the SD Gundam Brawler, and I need to give it a play.
Wow.
Because I'm that guy, he says, like behind a small mountain of Gundams.
Oh man, Western live action Gundam win. Okay, on one hand, maybe, but here's the thing. I feel like a Western adaptation cannot capture the amount of like melodrama you need in a Gundam series.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like anime melodrama is very specific. And like as soon as you add like kind of American acting to it, it just doesn't quite land.
You know, you've got to be able to have someone with an absolutely straight face, like float semi-naked through like rainbow stars while having a psychic mind connection with somebody else, and that this be not only serious but like a heartfelt moment. You know, you can't have Chris Pratt with his bum hanging out floating through the stars with the like wibbly wobbly new type noise in the background. Right.
Well, and also, you know, they'd like Marvelify it too, right? So they'd be like, what? Giant robots? Oh, well, that's great. Like, you know, one of those lines that they use in like every major big budget like Western movie now, where it's like, I've got to acknowledge that this situation is ridiculous. I can't play it in like a self-serious way. Yeah, so
you know
I
what?
don't know.
This will never happen. I would love to put together a Gundam production, but with like ridiculous like method acting full tier individuals, like straight play it. And I'm talking early Gundam with the bright colors and everything, and get like I'm just trying to rack my brain.
Get the guy who played Napoleon Dynamite to be Amuro Ray.
God, who would we do as Char? Now I'm trying to think.
Let's see, who could do that?
Because you've got to have that camp kind of cheese, whilst also being incredibly cool. You know.
Yeah, that's a good
question. The kind of person who could pull off a half cape and not look like a parody.
Jason Statham. There we go. And then what you have? Okay, so actually no, I'm gonna change this movie entirely now.
Okay.
So instead, this is a Gundam movie starring Jason Statham, and everyone else pilots Gundams, but Jason Statham just fights the robots as himself. He does not get in a robot. So it's kind of like a mixture of regular Gundam and G Gundam.
What is G Gundam?
Statham is just
Why don't we just make G? You know what? Let's just make live action G Gundam. I mean, because it's campy, it's straight faced, giant robot horse. Everyone's gonna love giant robot horse. We'll get someone famous to do the neighs of the horse, like Groot.
Right.
Jobs are good.
And replace all of the mildly offensive Gundams with less offensive Gundams.
Yeah.
Like
Gundams.
You should probably not have the Mexican Gundam, because that was, I mean, of its time, but definitely kind of a disaster.
The mustache, the sombrero, the cactus armor.
Yeah.
Oh. A completely pointless but fun fact: the reworking of Tequila Gundam is a cowboy.
Huh.
So instead of a sombrero, it's a cowboy hat, and it has a giant guitar that spits out revolvers that it shoots.
You know, I can't decide if that's like actually much better. Anyway,
Take that knowledge with you.
yeah. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you for bequeathing it onto me.
Live action Windmill Gundam. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. No changes to Windmill Gundam. That was a perfect design.
Yeah. How did you get into the finals? I turned into a windmill and hid for 3 weeks. Which means the person was just sitting in their cockpit eating snacks and just peeing into a bottle for 2 weeks. Like, that was what they did.
Yeah, no, probably like fucking like no-lifing Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? No, it's just balancing the cheese of Gundam with like the mechanical intricacies is something that I don't think anyone's really hit upon.
Yeah.
Like, there are teams that have done great work with giant robots, and there are teams that have done like the full-on cheese, but not the two. So like,
right.
I know it's a bit of a hyperbole example, but Pacific Rim hits that like super robot cheese perfectly. But the robots are too big to be comprehensible. It's definitely the super robot, not the real robot. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh yeah. No, I mean like, yeah. And Pacific Rim is one of the few to like nail it. I think the other problem is just that like in general, like Western studios don't know what to do with like certain elements of anime. I mean, like look at how the Cowboy Bebop live action show turned out, right? Where it was just like this tonal mess.
Trash.
Yeah, well, they didn't know what to do with like the tone and vibe of it.
No.
And so they're like, what about like maybe sort of like Scott Pilgrim? It's like, why? Why would you think that maps onto this? It doesn't make any sense.
But then the whole swaths of that show hit the tone perfectly. You could see, okay, it goes back to kind of like the Char Aznavour, like the cheesy cool, like Vicious is a disaster of a character when you say it out loud. He's a long-haired, emo, skinny guy with a super long sword and a bird. And that's his whole deal.
Right. And he has like no real, like as far as villains go, he's a compelling villain not because of his character, but because of like what he represents.
Yeah.
And like sort of, I mean, he is an avatar for Spike's past.
And that's it. With the TV adaptation, they just couldn't handle that. It was like they had to give him like reasons and motivations. He couldn't just be this enigmas. Is enigmas a word? Did I just make a word up? I think I might have.
Maybe. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that Cowboy Bebop revealed one of the things that like is, true for some anime, and especially Bebop, is that, I mean, like, that show in a lot of cases skates by on style, not over substance, but as a means of conveying kind of like implied substance.
Yes.
Lets your brain do a lot of the work. The like, or your brain and feelings. Like, it's not a super deep story, and it doesn't need to be.
No.
But then you try to translate that into the language of like modern kind of Western television storytelling and prestige TV and stuff like that, and you just have so many more gaps you've got to fill in that you can't fill in just with like some interesting visuals and music and things like that.
Yeah, things like they didn't need to add Julia as a subplot line throughout. Like, she's always like the girl what got left behind, which works very well in that sad jazz thematics. Vicious doesn't have any more motivation than he's just bad. He is the past catching up to you. They didn't need to be married and have a flat and argue about it. Sorry. It's infuriating because it's simultaneously brilliant and terrible. Because Dameron Gamer brings up Death Note, Willem Dafoe's performance as Ryuk was perfect. But everything else about it completely lost it. I guess we're just talking movies and media now. Let's go. I mean, friends, if you do have any other questions on like streaming or video games while we have Nathan, throw them on in.
Yeah, go for it.
But I mean, it's just so interesting that we are reaching a point where we're getting to see these adaptations ever so slowly come together, and where they're falling down and where they're succeeding. I mean, the idea of the anime adaptation into live action is kind of it's the golden chalice. It's the cursed treasure. Whoever manages to grab it and succeed will make all money. And because of brand recognition, you're guaranteed that people will see it to start with. But how?
Yeah. I mean, it's also just like the sort of, I think it's more like it's something that people are asking for without understanding what they actually want, which happens a lot, right? And then like there are other people who are like, well, I'm going to try to cater to that because there is demand. And it's like, yeah, but I think that no version of what people get out of that bargain is ever going to be what they actually want. Because nothing's ever going to like top what an original series did in that case, because it was made for a particular medium. And when you try to translate it, it just always like ends up a little hollow.
I mean,
so
in games, games to film is such a strange medium, where like again, direct adaptations just don't work. Being able to convey the experience, that's the real challenge,
right? And that's like very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting challenge that I think that so far not that many like studios and filmmakers have really actually tried to grapple with.
Yeah.
I think we will get to a point where like more and more movies become kind of like about the experience of a game, or about like the confines of a game, or like other elements of it. For example, like even this is a digression, but have you seen Nope, the new Jordan Peele movie?
Not yet.
Well, it's very good, and I'm not going to spoil anything super impactful.
Thank you.
But there's a moment where, amidst other unassociated chaos, somebody loses their shoe, and it stands perfectly on its nose, like perfectly upright, as opposed to like falling over. And it just sort of like sits there in the middle of this otherwise horrifying scene, and it's upright like that. And it just made me think about video games, because like it felt like one of those moments where you're playing a video game and like you are doing this combat scene, you're killing a bunch of people, and like the physics glitch out in a really eerie way, where somebody like is totally upright or stock still, or like something falls over in a way that it shouldn't, or remains upright in a way it shouldn't, and there's something eerie about that. And like I think that whether consciously or unconsciously, like Jordan Peele kind of like leaned into that. He was like, yeah, that is eerie, that is strange when that happens. What if I put that in a movie? What if I put this object that just like is not behaving the way that it should into a film? And it does something, right? It's something that like you can't really communicate verbally what exactly it does, but it definitely enhances that scene. And so I think we're going to see more of that, more of just like people learning from, these elements of games that aren't even necessarily meant to be part of the experience.
Okay.
But that nonetheless are like unique to that experience.
No, that's fascinating, and I definitely need to see that.
It's an amazing movie. It's one of the best movies that has come out this year, in my opinion. It's top notch.
I'm just working out how I can delete Park Program's Twitch account saying, "Why is Doom the best game movie?" I know what you're doing. Why are you like this? Why are you like this? And Asari had a broad question, which I think we've covered, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to it, which was like, when it comes to how people find information on video games, like what do you think has changed recently on that one? And I know that's a huge question. So
I know, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if we keep it to like the last like year and change.
I mean, I think it's just become increasingly like, let's see, there are a couple things. One of them is like more direct from the source news. So like more just, companies are kind of like conveying all of the, again, we were talking about, all these like little mini E3s that everybody does on their own now, whether that's like Nintendo Direct or State of Play or what have you. And then all the attendant hype around that, that has now gone off the rails in really bad directions. Like, I mean, when people don't get what they want out of a Direct, or when they get like whipped into a frenzy by people who are like rumor mongering based on no information whatsoever, then like those fans get really abusive and terrible. We saw that with God of War in the recent State of Play.
Yes.
Even when like they still got a release date a few days later. Like, I mean, it wasn't even that long of a wait. But like when people didn't get anything from God of War, like they started harassing developers and like in really, really messed up ways, like sending dick pics and stuff like that, like things that are like, you know, unsolicited sexual advances,
And it is
like just really
interesting
messed up stuff.
like back in the day, we'd see this from big companies running hype campaigns. You know, they'd whip users up into a frenzy, but then wouldn't be able to keep up with the amount of interest and keen that users had.
And so now we're seeing
yeah.
the reverse of that, because the outcome and the blowback from these moments when people's expectations are not met has gotten so bad that companies are ahead of time being like, hey, just so you know, this direct or this state of play is not going to be about like, you know, big new announcements years out. It's going to be about like games that are coming out in the next few months, or like this specific game, like that surprise that you think you're not getting. We're sorry. We just want to let you know up front so that you don't go ballistic 3 seconds after this thing ends. Yeah. And then, so I mean, like that's one thing. I think that just whole phenomenon of how like companies are interacting with their audiences in this direct way, it's pretty interesting.
Sorry, I was just laughing because MDH was saying, but we're totally going to get a Silksong release date in the next Nintendo Direct. I promise.
Yeah, definitely.
And
you know, keep those hopes alive.
Kyle was hitting upon the same kind of beat as yourself, which is like, you know, game studios do now have their own live Twitch channels. And
I mean, they've been doing that for a long time, right? Like, I mean, Warframe has been doing that since 2013. So that one's not super new.
Warframe set the standard for that. Sorry. Again, the QI buzzer noise should set off, because it's like, you've just procced one of Will's hyper interests. Warframe basically led the charge on live streaming internal content, kind of alongside Riot, but Riot's focus was more on esports, whereas Friday Night Primetime was the template for companies streaming their own games. And it's still fascinating to think that started with just 2 people in the studio, just at their desks, just streaming on a Friday night, and would end up building Warframe into something that's almost inseparable from live streaming games now. And it's fascinating.
Inseparable from live streaming games, and definitely inseparable from its audience. I mean, and like that would not have happened without that direct interaction over the course of a decade. So I mean, I think there's that. I think also like, you know, there's a lot more like people getting game information on games from like just the internet in whatever capacity they use it. So I mean, like whatever platform they're on, that's probably where they get their games news. If someone is a TikTok power user, they probably get their games news from TikTok. If someone's on Twitch all the time, they hear about everything pertaining to games they're interested in.
That's me.
Like,
that's what
from
I do.
Streamers. And you know, this can have potential like negative effects in that, for example, you might get like, say somebody starts spreading a rumor on Twitter. They're like, yeah, this game is going to be revealed in the next direct, or like this game is going to be announced soon, or like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be X, Y, and Z. Then that goes downstream to TikTok or Twitch or YouTube. And like that rumor suddenly gets signal boosted by somebody who's much bigger than the initial rumor starter, but who like has no actual information here. It's totally unconfirmed. And that blows up and becomes part of like the accepted canon around a game, people's understanding of it, even though there's no truth to this whatsoever. This came from some rando. Like that's not great, right?
No.
There's this weird little cottage industry of people who like pretend that they are in the know, even though they don't know anything. And they just sort of like, you know, disseminate rumors and nonsense and bullshit and work people into a frenzy. And it just like leads to this more caustic environment where everyone is always dissatisfied, or like, you know, lying for the sake of clout or whatever you want to say. So yeah, I mean, like, it is a weird kind of news landscape where you've got to cut through a lot of bullshit in order to get to what's actually true. And most people just don't have time for that. That's why they rely on like, you know, other figures, creators, influencers, people on various platforms. Because like there's an implied trust there, right? The idea of like, I watch you every day and like I like you, what you do and what you represent a lot, so you're going to tell me something true. But that's not necessarily always the case.
Yeah, we're in a situation where there's literally no downside for just saying what you feel. And again, I'm not saying that this was good, but you know, dealing with misinformation has been part of like video games media for as long as we've been talking about video games. But back in the day, you know, posting things that were drastically untrue would get you pissed off with the PR people, and they'd stop talking to you. You know, if you suddenly announce that, you know, Starfield is coming in a week and it's going to be projected off of Todd Howard's face, and that gets covered, then your publication will end up having friction with that particular PR people. Again, I'm not saying this is good, but now...
Right, but it was what you're describing is an incentive to tell the truth. A mechanism by which there will be direct and demonstrable consequences if you fail to do so. And that in these cases does not always exist. Certainly, you can damage your credibility if you signal boost something that is not true. But the thing about being an influencer is that you serve so many other purposes aside from being a vessel for information that if you mess that up, people will be like, whatever, messed it up like once or twice, but you're not going to lose anybody over that. And similarly, if you're like a rumor mongerer, like, yeah, you might like lose some people, but you could just go start another anonymous account, or, you know, there are all these ways by which you can get around what used to be the kind of consequences for being either dishonest or haplessly wandering into conveying misinformation. So, you know, and like the PR thing is just the beginning, right? Because also, like, when you're a reporter, again, you're first and foremost there to convey information. And if you screw that up enough times, people would be like, well, we can't trust you. And if you're at a publication, that means you get fired.
Yeah, it's very real.
Yeah. If you are, you know, independent, working on YouTube or something like that, that means people are going to stop listening to you because they're just like, yeah, this person's been wrong too many times. But as soon as you have this like cross-pollination of people being entertainers, reporters, influencers, working with like companies sometimes, other times speaking their actual opinions, like all of these different purposes, then if you mess up one of those things, people still come to you for the others. And so it's like, you know, there are pros and cons to that, right? But one of them is that there's less of a reason for you to be really fastidious in the way that you convey information.
Indeed. For any of you that want like a really good example to chart this, Valve News Network is a really good... I get a little bit hyperbole because theirs isn't coming from a desire to make cash. It's coming from they really want more news about Left 4 Dead, Half-Life, the whole shebang. So they analyze and reanalyze the same data and come to very, very wrong conclusions. But they managed to get one right, which was the upcoming Half-Life Alyx. And so it was like in a sea of things that were thoroughly bizarre. They got one hit. And that was all it took.
Yep.
I mean, God, sorry. It's a really good example for research on the subject. Kaiba was saying that they think it was only 4 years ago they had to start sign the don't share info on social media in contracts. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Right. Yeah. Also, wait, let's see. Asari says, in your opinion, does streaming your development of your game help build interest in a community? Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I think it's one of these things where like that sort of, you know, the thing that you do for people who are already pretty invested in your game, like development's not that fun to watch a lot of the time. So like if you want to, you know, get numbers, that's not necessarily the way to do it. But if you want to reward people who are really invested in your game already and create positive word of mouth that will eventually maybe help build your community, then yeah, that's a great way to do it because it's like it's direct interaction, it's direct feedback, it's letting people who play your game feel like they are a part of the process, it's giving them agency. And so like, you know, maybe that doesn't yield anything in terms of like people playing your game up front, but like say one day after you do that for, you know, months or years, somebody from your community goes into the chat for another streamer or goes into the comments for a bigger game and says, hey, you know, I play this game and the developers there are great and they do this all the time and it's amazing and you should check it out. Or they make like a video that goes viral about your game where they talk about that. You know, there are all these like little seeds you could be planting by doing that. You don't know how they're going to grow, but they might. And so it's like worth doing in that sense.
Sorry, the chortling is Park Program's calling me out because at PAX West, they're going to be doing the Make a Game in an Hour panel, where they try and make a video game in one panel. I get to be the host / MC, so I'm going to heckle them quite repeatedly.
That sounds great.
Actually, that was something that, just because I know we have a lot of game dev individuals and indie individuals that watch or will watch this at some point. Are there any standout examples you can think of developers doing interesting live content? Things that have brought you into, put them on your radar in a good way, where you wouldn't have otherwise seen them?
Let's see. Interesting live content. I mean, again, like Warframe is kind of the standard bearer.
Yes, but they have the superpowers.
Right. They've been doing this forever.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who else? Is any other? So let's see. I generally like, watch content creators more so than developers, just because, like, again, no offense, but like watching game development is not always very exciting.
It's not bombastic, that's for certain.
Yeah. Now let's see. Live content specifically. I was gonna say recently I've been more interested in seeing how like developers adapt to TikTok, because that's a little bit of a like not harder, but like a less straightforward challenge.
You know what? That's interesting. I kind of find the three styles. So you have like mimetic original, mimetic reactionary, and just trailer. Like, mimetic original. Did you see the Earth, Wind, and Fire? But it's about Blender song that was doing the rounds.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it's so good. And one other team is doing, like the history of the world style. Knock knock, who's there? They've been doing that style as a dev diary, so a little bit weird, a little bit typography surrealist, but still with like, here's the process that they're making that game. And the other style is the mimetic reactionary is, here's the newest meme on TikTok. He's a 10 meme, or I don't know, they happen so fast of doing
Wait,
that.
have you okay, here's a really good example of like great TikTok content being done by a developer.
Yeah.
Have you watched any of God, I always butcher his name. Zolavier Nelson's TikTok stuff?
In this house, we stand Zalavir.
Okay, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, no, his TikToks are so good. And I mean, they just like, for one, the sort of thing he's doing is not doable by everybody, because he has a very natural charisma. He's really good at storytelling. He's very funny. He's very animated in ways that just not everybody is. But he's so good at like picking out interesting elements of like how his games became the way that they were.
Yeah.
Or interesting moments that are just like appealing to gamers, just to like understand how the sausage is made. Yeah. And then like turning those into compelling bite-sized, just like, oral storytelling. He's just like, I'm going to tell you about how like this thing came to be, or like how I did this, like something really grabby, like essentially a headline on a story is what he starts with, and then just like goes, and it's captivating. You're always just like, oh my God. Like in a lot of cases, right, on TikTok, like I'll, notice that a video is going to be more than like 15 seconds long, and I'm like, next, but I get to one of his and he just like grabs you immediately, and then you're on board for like, a minute and a half long story that he just like tells you, and by the end you're like, that was really amusing. Cool.
Yeah. Sorry, my laughing was J-Post. Yes, that is Mr. Denny's.
Yes, that is what he became at GDC.
Oh God, that was so funny.
Yep.
I was there for the start, and I saw him by the end of GDC, and it was like watching a person unravel through the medium of Grand Slam. Well, so Stammering's talking about like TikTok doing like quick release videos as great pre-launch campaigns. Right. That was what everybody wanted to do in the industry with Vine, and Vine wouldn't let us. And so back in the day, those little mini trailers for Game of Thrones and movies and stuff, those were actually against the Vine terms and conditions. But because Game of Thrones was so massive, they couldn't just blitz the account, because you had to basically use a jailbroken phone to do a direct upload via, which was fascinating. When we actually sat down and talked to people at Vine back in the day, as a games company, we were all like, cool, how do we do this? They're like, nah. Look at them now. So Honest Rogues, the gentleman is Zalavir Nelson. He actually frequents this show quite a lot.
That's fantastic. No, he's a good guy. Yeah. Sorry, I was just trying to find a stat, because one of the things I was going to say is that while TikTok is good for this kind of thing right now, it is going to soon probably succumb to the same problem as every other platform, which is that there are already so many people with like there are thousands of people with millions of followers now. And it's like eventually the means by which you can grow on that platform is going to fall off.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of these things where like the advice right now is if you want to be discovered, use TikTok, but it's not infinite. At some point, that will stop being effective.
Yes. The platform's solidifying, and it gets to the point where there is only so many game dev projects that can do something interesting that you genuinely want to watch. There's only so many like niches that your game can exist in. You know, if you're the fifth cozy, cute game about running a cafe, how do you differentiate yourself from the other four? And that's when you're playing a niche within a niche. And so, I've been using TikTok. I find it as an entertaining kind of almost like a call and response to make me a little bit more peppy. But but I also have come to understand that like as a person that discusses the games industry and you know indie video games, that market's already sewn up on there. So all I can offer is I don't know binge drinking and the weird shit that happens in my life.
Yeah.
And until there is another platform that gets added to that space, like there isn't the same. There won't be another big land grab in TikTok, you know.
Oh yeah.
But then sorry, now I'm just talking at you. The challenge in content creation is not killing yourself trying to be at the cusp of every new frontier, because most of them are trash. There's a couple of companies that have tried to do the TikTok formula with Twitch clips, and it just doesn't translate.
Yeah. But I mean, also, I cannot believe that Twitch still hasn't made its own, just like, you know, essentially TikTok, but Twitch clips, like an easy built-in tool so you can turn any part of your stream into a clip like that. And then just like have a, you know, algorithmic system where people can scroll through it. I mean, easier said than done, spinning something up like that. Like I'm sure it costs millions. I'm sure Amazon is not necessarily willing to kick in that kind of money. But at the same time, like,
it's
you know,
so
that's
hard to show someone a bunch of Twitch clips, either like from your phone or like on the platform. And so
well, you gotta pick the right clips, right? Because I mean, like at this point, the algorithm knows that I'm very into Twitch streamers. TikTok's algorithm does.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get a lot of them, and a lot of them are really good because streamers have gotten really savvy at picking the right moments. I mean, it's not even the streamers picking them; it's their video editors.
Yeah.
But still. So yeah, I mean, there's a means by which to do it, and it's kind of Twitch leaving money on the table. But I mean, like, yeah, if you want to like see some really good examples of it, one streamer who's super good at it, even though she's not that big on Twitch. Do you know like a BB Jess?
I don't, but I'll make a note.
Yeah, her TikTok is very good, and I mean, it's mostly just clips. It's just well selected, smart stuff.
I mean, I've been lucky enough because Deus, who's a gentleman here as an exceptional video editor, he will often say like, oh, this was very entertaining, can I steal your clips and do a cut of them? And so he does exceptional YouTube work that semi-translates to other platforms, but like, I don't have the hours in a day to make my weird shit pithy and snap in portrait mode. And the other thing that's quite interesting is when you get a lot of streamers together, I guess to everybody, as I'm sure you're aware, is that everybody has those great clip moments they want to show each other. And on just the app alone, getting to your clips to just show someone physically is a fucking ordeal. And once you've watched it, it's like, oh, hey, do you want to watch this next clip by, you know, CXQ or whoever?
Right.
It has nothing to do with anything. There's no correlation. There's no run through.
Right.
And it's
Yeah, it's a system in desperate need of an overhaul.
Yes.
But yeah. Also see MDH writes in chat just said someone who is on an Amazon platform that should have been easily a hit and it's mostly dead. They won't bother spending the money to get it done right. This is not how Amazon does things right now, it feels. Yeah, I mean, I would add to that also that an important distinction to make in general is that broadly speaking, Amazon views Twitch as a technology platform. The reason they acquired Twitch in the first place was to get their hands on a lot of streaming technology and incorporate it into Amazon Web Services. Such that like if you want to right now, you can essentially like buy into the technology platform and create your own Twitch, more or less, using Amazon tech. That is an option within Amazon Web Services. It's one of the many things that they offer to like companies and business people.
Hmm.
But as a result of that, what you have is a fundamental fragmentation compared to how, for example, Google views YouTube. To Google, YouTube is a like content delivery platform that serves up ads and makes a lot of money through ads. But Amazon does not have an incentive to similarly expand Twitch because they don't really view like ads and making money as its primary appeal. They already have its primary appeal, which is the technology underlying it. And so, yeah, these like bigger, more ambitious ideas about what Twitch could be,
Yeah.
Amazon presently does not really want to realize because that's not their goal for the platform. It's not what they care about.
And
So, yeah, that also, I think, goes a way toward explaining that.
yes.
And so then in turn, I think Twitch's goal right now is to become profitable, maybe in some ways to kind of demonstrate like, hey, we are worth investing in. We are worth like more than maybe you seem to believe right now.
Yeah. It's the smart guess that all of these large changes and the aggressive move towards additional advertising is to show value to the greater company.
Mhm.
So to be able to be in those meetings and say, no, the Twitch division is generating X amount of revenue. We need more resources. We need more autonomy, etc. That's a sensible guess.
Yeah, they also I think view it as, you know, a kind of like if we become profitable, it will solve many other problems as well. For example, like, you know, streamers want to be paid more and better. Well, if everyone's able to make more money off of ads, there you go, solves that problem.
Yeah.
And like if they're making more money, if they're more profitable, if bigger and bigger companies are selling ads to them, it becomes like a, you know, rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. I think at least in Twitch's view.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like practical long-term considerations and how this would actually play out, I don't think it really is going to work the way they want it to, especially because it's also ad driven and ads are terrible for a live viewing experience.
God, so much so.
But, you know, again, you can kind of see their thinking.
I should also say, like, I'm very privileged. You know, there's, 45 people hanging out with us, and we have over 300 concurrent subs right now. Like, that is very disproportionate. These lovely Mother Hubbards keep me alive, but they also, if someone shows up in chat that doesn't have a sub, House Carl are like, bam, I just tagged them. So a lot of people get a completely ad-free viewing experience here. So it's very easy for me to talk about this stuff. But
right.
As a creator, I mean, I made $9 on ads in 2021. Like, it's not bad, but
yeah, but I mean, $9 for a year.
Yeah, for 5 days a week.
Yeah. No, and then you have like the Twitch ad incentive program they're doing right now, which I mean, you know, pays better than that, but not much for a lot of creators. Well, and again, it's like, you know, $47 in exchange for like 74 hours of streaming or something. Like, no, that's significantly worse than a minimum wage job.
Yeah, and the experience for the viewer is so negative. Because you run ads every hour, you're guaranteed those are always going to drop at the worst possible time. And so what you do is you take people who would have been casual observers and you alienate them, you know? So I was watching some individual yesterday because I was looking up the Dead by Daylight dating game. Now, there weren't a lot of people playing it, so I was just watching one individual, and they're just about to start getting to an interesting point, and bam, a huge ad for DoorDash pops up with this fake horror game. What just as the individual in question is about to start telling me the interesting stuff about this game, and there's nothing I can do. I mean, I can smash the sub button, but at that point, I've already been denied. I don't know. So I guess it's very easy for me to sit in this chair and critique the advertising structure. You know, I'd be fine with old school banner ads and little things that don't directly impact the experience of people viewing. Like, anyway, sorry. Thank you for enabling me a tiny rant there.
No, sorry, I had to reply to a message in Slack for my job.
Dude, it's all good. And it's nice being able to discuss this with yourself. We're still struggling to find places where content creators can speak directly to each other like this. You know, I'm lucky, I have Sober, and so I have like, you know, Aperios and Chorby and loads of other people that are really invested in a place, but beyond local communities, I don't get to have conversations with individuals like yourself that have a visibility of the platform as a whole, or as live streaming as a whole. It seems once a month there is the usual Twitch is dead, everyone's moving to X platform post.
Right. Yeah, which is not actually realistically true.
No.
Twitch still commands a ridiculous amount of live streaming market share. Meanwhile, everyone's like, oh yeah, YouTube is like the big competitor, but it's about close to the same size in that regard as Facebook. They have around the same number of hours watched per month. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. It's more about like, I did a piece on this recently because it's like, okay, well, YouTube has been buying up all this top name talent. They must be like the other major player. Compared to Twitch, though, they just aren't. So it's like, okay, what's the point of this? And the sort of conclusion I came to based on the folks that I talked to, who, have worked on this side of things and know it pretty well, is that YouTube is trying to like kind of grow its own Twitch community, right? So they're like taking specific streamers who already have big names and communities and who most importantly have overlap amongst each other, like are prone to collaborating with one another, and sort of like as a result of that creating their own interconnected community on YouTube. And then from that, YouTube's belief is that that will like sort of naturally over time spread itself out into a Twitch style community that is particular to YouTube, as opposed to Twitch. And so, yeah, they're trying to reverse engineer Twitch's community essentially, which is interesting to me because it's a long play. It's a much longer play than, for example, Twitch is trying to make right now.
It is.
But again, it's just another example of the fact that Google views YouTube very differently than Amazon views Twitch, because like Amazon is like money, profit, money, do it now. And then Google is like, yeah, we'll give you, like a few years and millions of dollars to attract big names. And hopefully it'll pay off. If it doesn't, oh well.
It's interesting because, I mean, for a time, like, the YouTube community of content creators was very well documented. And it was a resource that they had. And, I mean, it's been a while since we spoke to... I got to chat with Jesse Cox about this. God, I forget when. But, he was talking about how, like, the amount of time and effort that YouTube's puts into these people they already have is very little. Like, they already had this resource. It wasn't cultivated, and especially after the death of Maker Studios and stuff like that, a lot of these people were left separated from YouTube with very little way to push forward. And then Twitch pops up and is like, hello, you can make money here. So a lot of them ended up shifting their operations over to there. So it's just, the reverse engineering is fascinating because they're trying to rebuild something they had.
Yeah, they had and then lost because of essentially negligence. Yeah. And you still see some of this, right? In that like YouTube's live streaming product is still not where Twitch's is.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of like big name YouTubers who still stream on Twitch, even though their main platform is YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you see from like Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, people like that. Like they still come over here to do their streaming. Yeah. So
that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting, but it speaks to, again, like, I think that even more than a product, what they want is a community to be streaming to.
Yes.
And I think that's what YouTube is trying to build, is a live streaming community that can rival Twitch. As for whether or not they're going about it the right way, we'll see. But it seems to be what they want.
No, I mean, again, that's fucking fascinating. Now, I mean, MDH was bringing up Mixer. That was...
Yeah, but I mean, like, Mixer, right? They barely tried. Mixer existed for barely any time at all. And, like, they, literally, they brought on Ninja and Shroud at the end of one year. And in the summer of the next, they just suddenly closed down Mixer. They're like, okay, well, we give up already. I mean, that was just, like, from a management standpoint, just, like, horribly done. I mean, I think Microsoft just had no idea what they wanted out of that entire endeavor. They had no real long-term goals beyond like they wanted to advertise. I think probably what they wanted is like less to grow the platform and more to get a couple big names to like in the future play major Microsoft games and be like, here's like a bunch of promotion for Halo Infinite or whatever. But then they were like, never mind, it's not worth the money. We're done.
there were some fascinating things they had. One of the things was when studios were acquired by Microsoft, part of the acquisition was that any development streams would be done on Mixer, which I thought was a very clever play and would have kind of grown a space given time. But
yeah, but I mean, again, like, for better or worse, not that many people are into development streams.
Yeah.
And so you would have there is like some people certainly showing up for that, but I mean, it would be a very like game developer specific one.
Yeah.
And
Also,
like you just can't really like grow a platform on that.
the feckin' Hype Zone never got the respect for just being an incredible piece of technical marvel combined with a genre of games that feeds on it. For those of you who don't know, so the Hype Zone was a channel inside Mixer that only ever showed the last minute or the last 2 minutes of a battle royale game.
Huh.
So it would jump between channels because you obviously had to plug your account in to stream on Mixer, and it would be like, oh shit, here's this person, they're in the final 5 of PUBG, or I forget what the Microsoft competitor was. It was like the Cycle or the Arena or something. And it would jump between those. It would just show you like the grand finale of these battle royale games, and then just jump to the next stream and jump to the next stream. And it was, God, I mean, it's a little bit Max Headroom surrealist when you think about it, but God, as a watching experience, it was fascinating and cracking for discoverability. A lot of people saw like much faster growth on Mixer. The problem was there was no monetization to back that up, so it wasn't possible to be outside of the huge entities. It wasn't possible to be a full-time Mixer streamer, and
It wasn't.
It couldn't be your primary income.
Yeah, no, it seemed really rough for anybody who wasn't like somebody pulling like hundreds or thousands of concurrents, because like the floor was so low and the ceiling was not that high. So it's just like, I mean, I think that it was like also some of the same problems Twitch has, but like more pronounced. I mean, similarly on Twitch, there's not really a middle class. Either you are, stratospherically popular, or like you're probably pulling like 5 viewers. And like there's very little opportunity for like, I mean, even like your stream is an anomaly, right? As you've been saying. And then like there are some streamers like do, just below 1,000. But I mean, beyond that, like you don't really have a good chance. Like if you are pulling like partner numbers, like 75 concurrent viewers, I mean, it's probably not enough. It's probably not sustainable, honestly. So it's a weird place to be, and I think Mixer had the same problem. Just like you could see it better because the numbers were either bigger or smaller, depending.
And I guess it's one of the things where I don't want to sound like I'm being blasé about this, but having the Mixer saga and stuff like that has given us the data to see these platforms grow and shrink in such a fast amount of time as to understand them. Television had to go through fucking decades before we had this understanding and data of like how channels or networks spooled up and crashed, and user viewing habits. God. I just realised I've been talking your ear off for like 2 hours. I don't know how much longer we have your company for, but
I mean, I probably need to get back to work pretty soon.
All right, so let's open up the floor, friends. If you've got any quick-fire questions for Nathan, now is the time. I'm taking this lot through a run of Damian Crawford's golfing experience after this. The premium text adventure golf game.
Okay. It's gonna be like Damian... okay, so MDH says, is this place a cult?
It's not a cult!
Yeah.
Why are you lot like this?
Man,
it's because you're here. They know they can mess with me even more.
Wow, this is a very interesting looking game.
It is. It's the Damien basically made his niche in video games by making like visual novel length title games. So things like, I have low stats, but my class is leader, so I recruited everyone I know to fight the Dark Lord. And there may be 99 of us, but we have to win in 99 turns. His Twitter handle is the worst RPG dev.
Yeah, this is it's a very impressive library of games.
Yeah. He's also working. Zalavir's publishing his next game, Purgatory Dungeoneer.
Yeah, they seem like kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing, though, right? Like a kind of interesting direction that I see sort of game development going is like there's an increasing number of people who like have game development skills. They understand the tools involved, and they're like not really making actual. They're instead of making games, they're making memes. It's just like, you know, in the future, this is my big prediction, is like video games themselves are. I mean, already to an extent, it happens with like Skyrim mods and shit.
Yeah.
But games are the new meme format, right? Instead of like, you know, in the same way that you can publish a meme video or put out, you know, like use an image or whatever. Like, I think that one of the like main meme formats in the coming years is just going to be like fully a game.
I mean,
A game that you like threw together in an hour or whatever. But I mean, like a lot of good meme videos take an hour, so same idea.
Although I think Damien is lurking with us at the moment, saying not knowing about the game is not something I can blame anyone for. So Asari had a fluffy question for you.
Okay.
Favorite game of the previous generation?
Wait, including the PS2? How's it the previous generation?
I'm going to say Time Truncation.
Man.
Asari is based in the UK, and everybody there is affected by Doctor Who style time anomalies, so it makes.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, Time Truncation.
Let's see. Favorite previous gen game. I don't know if you'd consider this previous gen, but Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we were actually doing a run through with Zalavir and Laura from Penny Arcade until they both got super busy with it. Oh, and sorry, thank you for gifting that to Damien. That's fucking cool of you.
Let's see. Based on the experience you've seen of this corner of the internet, would you call it a collective united longship
It's not
or
a cult.
for short? Amazing.
It's not a cult. Like I said, it's because you're here. They are absolutely reveling in being terrors today.
Nice. It's very funny.
Okie dokie. So that's definitely all that I've got on the questions.
Alrighty.
Dude.
We try our best.
Thank you for coming and joining me. Like, I understand, you know, you are one of the people in your field, so it's an honor to have you on the show. But it's also fucking great to catch up with you, mate. Like,
yeah.
You know, this is where I spend the most amount of my time, so it's great to bring you in, introduce you to peeps.
Yeah, no, it was fun being on your boat.
Dirty boat! Now, friends, if you'd like to keep up with what Nathan is up to, Twitter's the best place to find you, yeah?
Yep. Yeah, Twitter's a good place to find me. That said, also, obviously, the Washington Post. Specifically let's see, what is our URL for launcher? It's like Washington Post /video games or something. Here, let me. Yeah, you should link that in here too, because you know, we're always the problem that we continually struggle with is that people find out that we cover games and they're like, the Washington Post covers video games. What? And so, you know, the kind of long-term goal is to get people to stop asking that question. For them to instead be like, yes, I know the Washington Post covers video games. They do it all the time and they do it well. So yeah, any opportunity to hawk that, I'm like, go read our things, go watch our YouTube channel, all that stuff.
Then if
you're gonna start a TikTok soon.
Yeah. Go trundle on over there, dear friends. And we shall use the combined power of our clicks.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so check all that stuff out. Follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. And yeah, it's been fun. I had a great time.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I'll leave you to Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Thank you.
May you have fancy hair and fight well.
Thank you very much. I try.
Cheers to you, friend.
All right. Yep. Later.